Today's meeting of council. No mai haere mai. We'll just begin with karakia. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki roto, tuia ki te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te au, hui haumie hui tai ki e. Okay, we have today's, do we have apologies? No, we probably don't have any apologies now. Apology for lateness from Michael. Somebody care to move that? Councillor Noon, seconded. Councillor Weir, all in favour. Aye, against, carried. We do have a public forum today, and we have two individuals, I think, but one's representing a group speaking to us today. And the first today will be Pierre Marasti, representing Extinction Rebellion. Welcome, Pierre.
Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Pierre Marasti, and I am speaking on behalf of Extinction Rebellion. 2022 was the warmest year on record, and as a consequence, we have seen a succession of droughts and floods that culminated with the damage of hundreds of homes in Nelson. It shattered lives and extensively damaged local infrastructure. Overall, in 2022, climate-related events did cost New Zealand insurance companies $335 million, a record. Now we're in 2023, and after not even 2 months, this sad record is already being dwarfed by the scale of the climate destruction we just experienced. Cyclone Hale, the Auckland floods, and Cyclone Gabrielle have caused untold suffering that will weigh on the country for years to come. New Zealanders have died, New Zealanders have lost everything, and as of now, the long-term consequences of this disaster for New Zealand farming, for New Zealand infrastructures, and generally for New Zealand well-being are still very unclear. For 40 years, we have been warned that the burning of fossil fuels would create unmanageable climate disasters. Nobody cared, nothing changed, and now we are paying the price for apathy. From now on, every storm and every drought will become more damaging. Even Cyclone Gabrielle is unlikely to be the worst weather event of this decade. We made clear at previous meetings that there is no silver bullet to solve the climate crisis, but there are some basics to understand. What we've been told for 40 years and did not listen to is that fossil fuels are the problem. One of the most urgent changes that needs to happen is simply to stop burning stuff. Every liter of petrol we burn adds about 2.5 kilos of CO2 in our atmosphere. Gas does the same, constantly adding up, constantly warming up the planet. This, slowly but surely, is bringing us towards a world where Cyclone Gabrielle becomes a yearly occurrence. In the face of that emergency, we cannot wait for the central government to ban fossil fuel machines and appliances. We must stop buying them now. In 2023, no one should ever buy again a new petrol car, nor a new petrol-powered boat, nor any other petrol-powered tools or toys. The same goes for gas appliances. Today, we have better options for most things. And if we can change our legacy fleet of fossil fuel-powered stuff overnight, we can immediately stop adding up to that deadly heritage. As our elected representatives, we're asking you first to lead by example. Free yourself from fossil fuels and free all council assets from fossil fuels. Electrifying your fleet and your buildings shouldn't be an afterthought, but a priority. Also, you must communicate clearly with your constituents that we need to urgently get rid of our dependency on fossil fuels. Do not underestimate the importance of communication. We all have a role to play to decarbonize the country, And to do so, clear communication from the government is key. These demands are not radical. They are actually the low-hanging fruits of climate action. Many individuals have already freed themselves from the direct use of fossil fuels, and they are better off from doing so. But also some leaders in business are showing that we can decarbonize traditionally fuel-intensive industries. For example, Forest Lodge Orchards operates a carbon zero farm near Cromwell. They have an open door on the 19th of March. We invite you to go visit them and to see for yourselves that we can create a functioning society that doesn't need fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Are there any questions today?
Just like to, could I just have, Pierre, could you just clarify that open door 19th of March and tell us what that is again?
Yes, I will send you an email with the transcript of this speech and you will have all the details about the open door.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to come and present to us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Paul Munro. Aramoana League. Welcome.
Kia ora,
Kia ora.
kia ora tātou. Nā mihi nui, ko Paura ahau. My good afternoon. My name is Paul Munro. I'm the Vice President of the Aramoana League. And our concern is what's in front of you is drastic erosion of the sand spit, which is offering protection to the ecological area. An area of significant conservation value listed under the district plan. Part of the Aramoana salt marsh is located in the coastal marine area, which is covered by the regional plan, Coast for Otago. The marsh is considered to be biologically significant, both as the most important habitat for wading birds, as well as the most extensive and least modified salt marsh in Otago. Listed as an area of significant conservation value in the Dunedin District Plan, described as a buffer area, pasture dunes and sand spit, breeding grounds for insects, feeding grounds for many birds. The salt marsh area above mean high water springs lie adjacent to the second largest representation of dune slack in New Zealand of international and national significance. Now that come from a website, not a crazy website, that come from the Otago Regional Council website. So, on we go. The area we're talking about is Wagon Bay, where a breakthrough is imminent. You can see in the top picture there. There's actually 11 metres of dune remaining. If we turn over onto page 2, this is the area of Wagon Bay, which is looking from south to north. We continue over onto page 3. That's Wagon Bay looking from north to south. Now, Port Otago have been doing their own data and they're publicly stated that there's between 5 and 7 metres of erosion. Myself, with my own tape measure and local knowledge, I put it at between 11 and 10 metres of erosion. But the bottom line is that it's eroding quicker than it ever has in the last 6 years. Mr. Winders, the Port Otago have offered to pump sand into this, but as he stated in the ODT on the 12th of January, for the Tauroni groin installation, that pumping sand would be ineffective without the rock groins. So, why is it washing away? Well, our belief is that it's backwash, bigger ships, the widening of the harbour channel, which hasn't happened in that specific location, but it has happened north and south. So, and plus general erosion. So now we can go to page 4. Page 4 shows that the original design of what's called the Long Mac groin. The Long Mac groin is a system of parts. It's not just one groin. So we have the long rubber wall, which is called the Long Mac groin, and then we have a series of sub-groins. And if you took away the outer groin, it looks remarkably like Tauroni Beach, 3 groins. So we're concerned about that this groin has never been maintained, not in my lifetime. Now, where I've crossed the line there, it says that the Port Otago focus of reports has only ever been north of that line. they're a business, they're a company, and I understand why his business is shipping and his concern is the channel. But all of the reports that we've been provided with are not specific to erosion, and nor should they be. He's running a business. But what you're looking at there is Shelley Beach and the end of Shelley Beach, which is where the dunes have now grown. There was nothing there in 1900. It was sandbanks. That's it. So Mr. Winders states in the ODT on the 25th of January that they have the science, they're not going to do anything, and he's comfortable with his science. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they don't have the science because they've never focused on the maintenance of the entire groin system. It's only ever been the northern tip. I won't bore you with the whole lot, but if you can read it, it says that where 10 foot of water once stood, now 6 foot of sand. That's a fact. The groins were installed, and within 3 years, the dunes have built up. It's beneficial to Port Otago. In those days, it was the Otago Harbour Board, because the dunes capturing and being regenerated was capturing windborne sand and tidal spill. So that's a fact. This is from their own report. We move on to page number 6. This is in 1913, another scientific representation of the groins. This was when the pilots' houses were first installed upon land that used to be 10 foot of seawater. It's now above land. It's been regenerated. It's been planted. So the groins worked. Why are the groins important? Because the sand dunes built up, which gave the ecological area 100 years of protection. The ecological area would not be what it is today without the interaction between the groins and the dunes. Once again, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need to do any more reports. That's a fact. The groins were installed, the dunes built up. Page number 7 is just simply a reference for how Port Otago within their reports have broken up the groin structure. Long Mac is the entire length from north to south, all the way from the northern tip down to where the Aramoana Pilot's Wharf used to be. And hopefully one day we'll be there again. Then they've got the secondary groin and the sub-groins. So we move on. Page number 8 is showing what originally when the Aramoana Mole was built in 1884, the sand and spoil moved along, which was not dunes, it was just coastal. And why the Long Mac groin was installed by the Otago Harbour Board was to capture the sand that was transitioning along the beach and also wave action. The groins again worked, captured the sand, the dunes grew. Once again, the main focus of all the reports, and I have them here, for Port Otago has only ever been the northern tip, which is the very tip of Long Mac, and what they're calling the secondary groin. That has been it. I have seen no information, no science from Port Otago that has done any information on the sub-groins and Long Mac in its entire length back to where the fourth. Now, the dunes are not made by nature. They've been created by human interaction. They can be saved by human action by simply maintaining the existing groins. These are not an ambitious project like Taroney Beach. These are groins that have been there for 100 years, that have been neglected. If, like, I'm a full believer in climate change, and if this was a natural sand spit like Farewell Spit or wherever, then of course sometimes you have to retreat and say, Mother Nature, you won. But these dunes have been created by humans and we can save them. End of story. The ecological area of national importance is at threat, and I believe that the Otago Regional Council has a duty of care to protect them. So what do we want? Originally, I was going to say that we should do another report. Well, I think in light of the financial difficulties you're having with money, why do another report? The facts are within the Port Otago reports. A costly report to tell us that it's eroding. We've got eyes, we've got a tape measure. We know the lie of the land. Why is it eroding? Publicly stated by Port Otago was that Taroney Beach, without the groins in the sand, they had their part to play due to larger shipping and backwash. Well, as far as I'm concerned, backwash comes from both sides of the ship to varying degrees. So that's where I'm at. The reports, the 4 reports that we've received have only ever focused on the northern tip, as in the latest Becker report, which you're welcome to see. It's only photographs of the northern tip. The whole groin has never been studied. And I don't think it needs to be. We've got the information. It was installed and it worked. So really, I was hoping that the Department of Conservation could lead, but I don't think that's possible. But I believe the ORC have a duty of care to push Port Otago as the owners of Port Otago Limited to maintain the existing groins. Not an ambitious project like Taroney Beach. And I would have thought that the money spent on, and I'm very happy for Taroney, this is not a play-off. One would have thought a special ecological reserve of international and national significance would have taken precedent over a beach. But however, I'm happy for Taroney, it's wonderful. So that's that.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, that's good. It looks like we've got some questions, if that's okay. We'll just do that quickly. Councillor Wilson.
I've got 2 questions. One is the time frame of which this change is happening, just to get that in my head. Sorry, I'm at this.
Well, it's been eroding. We've been working on this for 30 years. The Aramoana League. The Aramoana League, I don't know whether is an organisation. We've got 131 financial members, and we've been in operation at Aramoana since 1931. Sorry, I should have told you that. We've been on this for 30 years about the general erosion and the effectiveness of Long Mac, but the erosion has started to expedite within the last 7 or 8 years. What's changed? Dredging of the channel. Ships are increasing.
And I'm going to ask a question which probably sounds adversarial. I don't want to.
No.
Sure. I'm just wondering if you've got any qualifications in this area. You've articulated your position really well, but I'd be interested.
No,
I'm not biased against.
I'm an electrician. I could do your lights. I drive a Tesla. I've got solar power.
You would like to hear that.
No, I'm not a hydrologist, but I'm a local of 58 years with a tape measure and eyes.
And thank you. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, that's
all
fine.
good. Thank you. Andrew.
Thanks for coming on, Paul. Just a question, you sort of indicated that DOC may not be appropriate organisations lead, even though they have vested interest in the salt marsh, etc. So is that sort of your assumption after some dialogue with them, or is it just...
We've had ad nauseam meetings with the Port Otago Department of Conservation. Department of Conservation, similar to maybe the Otago Regional Council, but are crying that they don't have the funding. They're supportive. They are the guardians. We're the guardians of this land. And it's what we do from now through that in 50 years' time, we won't be sitting here. Some may, but the land should still be there. So DOC have said that they're interested. They would get on board. So one point that I didn't make was that instead of costly reports and all the rest of it, we know what's happening. Now, Port Otago have a resource consent for harbour works, that's for dumping rock at the breakwater, the mole. I know it's not as easy as this, but you wish it could, that somebody could do an addendum to that resource consent and include the Long Mac groin system, because both systems were tied together when they initially installed. I know it's not that simple, and I do have sympathy with Port Otago. They've done some great stuff. It's not a witch hunt towards Port Otago by any stretch, but for some reason, they're blind to the erosion on this side. Yes, fully supportive, but like everybody said, they've got no funding.
Thank you.
Right, we're running out of time for our 10 minutes. Kevin, Kevin, I think it's a...
and probably more to our staff, is this area actually listed as a significant natural area or an outstanding natural landscape with the likes? And if not, Is it listed as?
In the Dunedin City District Plan.
In the
So,
di-
yeah, in the
yeah.
area.
It's in the district plan as the significant conservation value. That website that I read from was your own website.
Yeah, no, this is slightly different planning interpretation, so we could get some information what their responsibilities are around that and
It's
maintaining.
certainly listed in the district. Plan.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Paul.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, look, just very briefly, it says that the Port Otago Chief Executive, Kevin Winders, said that the port company was not planning any repairs to the groin. The long mat groin had been in place for a long time, and there's always been a debate around the effectiveness or not. Well, that's no debate. It's been effective. The dunes are there. We got the experts in, and long mat groin doesn't make a difference there, and clearly it's just sand replenishment. I'd have a bad term for that. That's not true. We are quite comfortable with the technical advice. Well, they don't have any.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it. I can see Brian wants to talk, but
Oh.
we've got quite a big agenda today and we have had.
Yeah, thank you, Gretchen. As a matter of interest, I don't on my system able to put my hand up, so I might have to interject from time to time. My question is to the CE, is what's the steps from here? Will a director take up this issue and respond to this matter? What's the process?
That's a very good question. Let me contemplate that.
Yeah, we don't give answers. It's not the purpose of public forum. It's to hear from the public at this point rather than to question our staff. And it is as helpful as that may be. That's not what the forum is. Thank you.
No, I realise that, but normally there's a response to the public forum, and so the question to the CE is what is the process? And I'd like to get some feedback on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I hear your frustration, but yes, we've got a big agenda and we hear from the public in public forum. Okay, we have got the agenda and confirmation of agenda comes next, but there is a late paper to consider. And I'd like to move that we accept the late recently compiled confidential paper called Proposed Land and Water Plan Timelines, which cannot be delayed to a later date due to the work program impacts, and that this paper be discussed in public excluded meeting due to section 7(2)(g), so bear with me, of section 48(1)(a) of the Local Government Act, which is around legal privilege. So do I have a second for that? Councillor Wilson. Everybody in favour say aye. Aye. Against. Carried. Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
I'm just wondering, under confirmation of agenda, and I'm sorry, I should have talked to you about this earlier, whether we should have an item or an explanation of what has been happening in light of Cyclone Gabrielle from the ORC staff point of view of assisting. And just to acknowledge all the hard work that the regional councils and TAs and people up there are going through. And yeah, I appreciate there's been some comms in the background about helping, but we haven't articulated that and whether that should be done today. I'm not quite sure.
I'm just wondering if we could maybe just discuss that as part of the either chairs or CEs reports, Kate, rather than a separate item.
that's fine.
I imagine we could do it there. Thank you. So we've got the additional item there, which will be public excluded. I don't think there's any other changes that I'm aware of. There's a reminder of declaration of interests. If you have any conflicts of interest, that's your responsibility to assess those. And we did, the open actions from resolutions. This time we've got a separate paper on that. So rather than handling that at this moment, we'll. Oh, sorry, Liz.
Yes, so this one is for current.
Oh, radio. Sorry. Thank you. This one is for the current triennium. So there are some there, which I've just. Oh, now I need to find them. Sorry.
That's why I was going to.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to discuss those, which I've got there, you can do that.
The blue and green are all completed.
Yeah. Completed most of those. All of them.
Oh, sorry.
Right, there's some on the second page that haven't been. Yeah. So, yeah, you can see what's still in progress there. If anyone needs to discuss those further, now's the time. No. Don't need to move that, do we? No. Okay, thank you. We've got some minutes which need to be accepted as a true and accurate record. So there's 3 sets there, 5th, 7th and 12th. Moved, councillor Wilson, seconded councillor Ware. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. And we move on to our matters for council consideration. First up being annual plan. Just wait for staff to come forward. Understand we're being joined by Nick Donnelly. Is Mike coming as well, or just Nick?
No, Mike's the one.
Oh, okay,
So
sure.
just me today.
Oh, okay, welcome. So the report there, you've all read, and I'm taking that as read unless, Nick, did you want to highlight anything?
No, I think we could just take it as read, and the exec summary sort of summarises where we've got to. We've had the workshops that were mentioned in the paper as well, and outlines the process that we've gone through, and we've now got the numbers that are included in this report. We're looking at an 18.8% rates increase. So we're proposing basically to go out to communicate that to the public, and we're not proposing to do any formal consultation because basically there's no real change to the work plan that's driving that. It's just the inflationary impact on the existing work plan that was already contemplated in year 3 of the LTP and the annual plan that we've currently got for this year. So that's what we're proposing to do, that communicate that, get feedback on this, and also more importantly to use that as feedback that we can utilise going into building the next LTP, which will be not kicking off, but will be underway seriously later this year. So that's what we're proposing to do. And yeah, rest of the paper, if there's questions, we can answer them. If there is any sort of about the comms process, as I said, Mike's not here, but Jo is here, who has been through that with him. So she could answer any of those questions as well.
Thank you, Nick. I've got a list of people who would like to ask questions at this point, I think. Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Mepham.
Thank you. It's Donnelly. This is going to go across several papers that we've got today and tomorrow. I think on the we've got a matter about the PARI rates review that has been disappointingly slow to resolve itself. In this budget, what increase is there on that rate that was being reviewed and we promised would be reviewed by now? Is there an increase in this financial year, in this budget?
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I've got that. It is going up. It's going up in line with the what it was proposed to go up in the LTP. So the targeted rates are still, the increases are staying the same as the LTP. We haven't outlined all of those individual rates, but I think I've got a spreadsheet
It's
open.
handy, otherwise we
Yeah,
can do something else. In the
I'm not so worried about the amount. I had understood that was the case. I just want to confirm before I ask the next question. My understanding is also we've had an underspend in the past year because we haven't got as far ahead with that work. Am I correct? We haven't done the review, but we also haven't done the planning and the capital works that goes with that rate anyway. Is that correct?
I, off the top of my head, I don't know how that Tyree, how the Tyree rate scheme is tracking.
I'll get into that in debate when we go into the motion.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to, are you right with the rest of that question, Nick, or shall we come back to that?
I was happy, the fact is the confirmation that there was an increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still, it is increasing. It's just increasing in line with the with what we had in the LTP.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd have to go and have a look.
Councillor Mepham.
Yeah, Nick, at our workshop, I think it was last week, wasn't it? There were 3 scenarios that you put up. There was one which was based on the long-term plan, which was a plan rate increase of 12%. There was another one where, with inflation adjusted, it was 18%. And then a third scenario where there was a 21% increase in rates, which had a whole lot of additions to the plan in there. So the rate now that you're proposing at 18.8%, is that equivalent to the 21% we were talking about last week?
Yeah. So basically, but we've gone away and reviewed some of the numbers. We went looked at some of the assumptions that we had in there around. I'm trying to remember what changed. We had there was actually the 20% that we had did have an increase to some of the targeted rates, only 2 of them, the 2 transport targeted rates, and I've been saying that was staying in line, so we pulled that back down. So the increases as strictly as per the LTP, and we looked at some of the assumptions around rent. So we'd already factored in the fact that Whare Runaka wouldn't be happening in year 3, so we wouldn't have the rent that we had in year 3 of the LTP, but we'd left a bit much of the existing rent in there when we'd taken that out. So we pulled that back down, and then we actually just rejigged the penalties income in light of we've got the paper tomorrow in finance. That was that's actually tracking it sort of at the last couple of years. It's been 800,000-900,000. We still had about 400,000 in there. So we increased that, and our rate recoveries in relation to all of our rental properties as well. We increased our costs, but we hadn't factored the other side where we on charge that. So we did a few of those things that pulled it down to the 18.8. So we didn't have to go and change any of
back any expenditure.
Actually there was consents had looked at they had a 2 or 3 FTE that they had reviewed their numbers, and we pulled that out, and about 1.5, 1.6 of those FTEs came out of the rates. No, 1.6 was fees and charges. The other 1.3 decreased the rate. So yeah, effectively about 1 FTE came out as well. So it was all pretty minor. But and then in that summary that I've got, rather than having the 2 steps and the 2 scenarios, just consolidate it and rolled it into one from what was in the LTP to where we are now at the 18.8.
So the 18.8 is basically the full wish list in terms of expenditure.
Yep. So, and everything's outlined there, and you can see the step from year 2 LTP to year 3 LTP. So that's already in there, and then from year 3 LTP to where we are now with all the things that have changed, and also showing those other columns to show which ones of those are rate funded versus some of them are just grants, some of them are reserves. So, not if you did look at any of those and you went, oh, we could maybe not do that, it might not have a rate impact.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah, I wouldn't like to refer to it as a wish list. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pull you up on that. This is the work program that was planned in the LTP 3 years ago. So yes, we are assuming that we're going to continue to complete the full work program.
thank you. Councillor Noon, followed by Laws.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Question for our current CE and our future CE. If the council were of a mind to set a rate increase for the draft annual plan 23-24 of 16.8 rather than 18.8, is it possible to look at the consequences of that target and whether the work programs will be impacted upon or not?
Well, so I'll answer it first. Mr. Future CE. Look, you're asking the question, if we contemplated only a 16.8% increase instead of an 18.8% increase, you've just asked the question, could we look at the impact of that on our work programs? And the answer to that is yes, we could look at it. So that's not exactly the answer you're after. What you're really wanting to ask is, would that mean a reduction in work programs? I suspect. And my view is we would endeavour to find efficiencies across the organisation that might allow us a lower rates increase. But we've made our best assessments around the cost of completing our existing work program. So we'd have to find those efficiencies somehow. And the reason I'm reticent to say yes, it would be easy is that both the council and the public would think it's always easy to make efficiency gains. And we've really explained that over the last 3 years, we've been growing the organisation. So actually cutting costs when you're actually doing the opposite, it's not that straightforward, and we're a pretty lean organisation. So I think there's a risk to say we can always find a couple of percent. But yes, we probably could find a couple of percent. If it was 10%, then the natural consequence of that would be we would lose 10% of our work program. And there's lots of ways we'd do that. I mean, at the moment, we've got vacancies, we may not fill them. There'd be an impact, and it wouldn't naturally fall equally across the work program either. So there's a risk of looking at significant cuts, in my view.
Councillor Laws.
Oh, sorry, can we
Oh,
just go to
sorry.
Richard? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Richard wanted to comment.
Oh, look, I don't have too much to say. I think I agree with what Tim said. You know, obviously we have gone through that process as Nick outlined and found a number of smaller things which have led to that new proposed increase that still delivered the full work program. I agree with Pim that there is always that opportunity, but it's, you know, it does come with some pressure to ensure then that we do deliver that, less room for anything new during the year, which includes things like LTP consideration, and Information Council will need to consider those things, which all come into the thinking around annual plan year 3. So there are other things to consider around, I guess, the flow-on effects and how we would need to consider any other requests for work during the year. But that's part of the process anyway. But I do agree with Pim that when we are talking around, if we are saying 18.8 to 16.8, if that then the opportunity to do that is there, and I would be hopeful that could be achieved without any impact to the program as it currently stands. And if it was going to, then we would need to come back and test that, whether the appetite was there. Thank you.
I'll have a foreshadowed motion, but it's with.
Okay, foreshadowed motion from councillor Noon. Sure, councillor Laws.
Yes, I have 2 questions, or 2 primary questions, please. If I could take you to page 24 of my paper, but it would be background, the clause is background 7, clause 7. And now we're in public session, not in council workshop. Could I ask this question of Nick, so that we can have this on the record publicly? In year 3, we were proposing of our long-term plan to have a 12% rate increase this year. And this draft annual plan puts it at 18.8%. The primary reason that we have given for this increase is inflation. Could you please explain how we've gone from 12% to 18.8% in year 3, when the rate of inflation is not 50% plus over that same time period?
Yeah, the part of, in that table that I put, if you look, one of the biggest numbers that's in there, so that's on the couple of pages over, you can see the staff costs. So I've said the primary, you know, there is other things that are in there. If you look in that rates, general rates column, you can see there, but the biggest number that's in there is that 1.445, which is the staff cost impact, and that's the inflationary number.
Yep.
So are you saying that it's staff salaries, the increase in staff salaries, that is the primary reason for the 50% plus increase in rates from the long-term plan to this year?
Yeah, so so they're not new staff, they're just, where it's staff costs, that's applying, you know, current pay rates and inflation to next year, because you've got the impact of what rates have gone up this year, but then this is going into next year's annual plan, so we've got inflation to factor into that. When we were doing that, doing the long-term plan, we were basically assuming 2.5% per annum. So we've had the impact of the last couple of years of higher, and then obviously we're still forecasting that it's going to be higher in the year going forward. So that's just the impact on the existing staff numbers. Some of those other numbers up above, there is some, you know, there is some additional FTE, so if you go through, so there is additional costs in there, but the biggest portion of that increase, or the biggest single sum, is the impact on those staff costs of the new, you know, of the inflation adjusted rates.
Dr. Byron, going to comment, sorry, Councillor Laws, and then we'll come back to you.
Oh, sorry, Michael, I was just going to correct you in terms of your suggestion that the increase from 12% to 18 was a 50% increase in inflation. That's not the case, of course. The inflationary increase just attaches to all of our costs, which is why it's still only a 6% increase. We're estimating inflation at 7.5. You know that we increased staff salaries on average by 6.1% last year. Yes, it's a 50% increase in the increase in rates, but that doesn't equate to a 50% increase in inflation.
No, but I have read the public statements today that have been reported, and I think it's important to note the reasons why that has gone from 12 to 18.8%. You have now given more detail than has been made publicly available to date. That's good, and that's on the record. The second question is fees and charges, table 27, clause 27. Can someone explain to me why we're increasing the charges at all for our staff?
Because all the costs have gone up because of the inflationary impact. So we're assuming then to recover that you need to factor in that your rates need to go up to recover the same level proportionally of fees and charges that you had.
It doesn't cost $215 an hour to pay our management, so why are we charging them out at $215 an hour?
Because it's worked out. We don't charge out just what their salary costs are. We have to factor in all of the overheads and all the other costs that go along with it.
Can we get a breakdown of that? Because I'm still struggling to justify how we're charging out our management at $215 an hour, which is basically the rate of a senior solicitor or even a law partner to people who will be utilising us for resource consents. And then also that doesn't match with just what I've been told by Pim. If you go from 205 to 215, that's what, about 5% increase. But the rate of your staff salaries have gone up in addition to that. So where's the correlation between current and proposed? What's the mechanism you've used to reach the new proposed staffing hourly rates for charging out?
As you said, we've effectively applied 5%, which is the addition, the additional inflation.
I'm not convinced that we are charging out the real cost to our organisation of what an hour of management or team leader or senior technical time would be. I've never seen that breakdown. Has it ever been provided to us?
Odd, off the top of my head, we can't recall when we have with, the rates are reviewed like this, and then we put them into this sort of paper when we're proposing for them to go up. We also review them in line with, what other councils are charging. So, we go through that process.
I'm just asking, Madam Chair, if it'd be possible to get a breakdown, because we're going to now have to justify not only an 18.8%, but an increase in our fees and charges. It'd be good to be able to explain to people how we in actual fact arrive at the figure that we do when they get their bill.
Yep, Dr. Byron might want to comment, but I can see that he's nodding his head.
Yeah, no, look, I can agree with you more. We try to get cost recovery. Again, we haven't increased the charges in real terms. They've gone up by 5%, as Nick's explained, because we'd only estimated at the start of the LTP that it would be 2%. So we're trying to recover something close to inflation, which is 7.5%. And you're quite right. There's no reason why we can't tell you what makes up those costs. The labour cost is only one element, as Nick tried to explain.
Any further questions, Councillor Laws? We've got Councillor Scott after you.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott.
Cool. And I've managed to figure out how to get my hand up via the
luck.
phone system. Cool. Yeah. A question is in relation to the consultation, and there's been reference to that. Will the community be able to submit in any form? And couched in with that, will the community be able to comment in relation to their own projects and so forth, which historically has happened with the annual plan process?
I could have a go at answering that if I can, Brian. Look, what we've tried to do is to largely keep the work program for year 3 of the LTP the same. The reason for that is because we just think we've got so much work to do for the LTP to really try and get this organisation to a point where we're providing the program of work that is needed for our communities across our region. So that gives us the time to really work hard on the 10-year plan. So our view is that there hasn't been any substantial change to the work program, therefore we don't need to consult on it. And in terms of the rates increase, which we're projected to be 12%, has now gone to 18.8%. Our view is that the actual average dollar figure of those rates increases, which I think are around $54, I read in the newspaper, that came through from finance. We don't believe that's substantive either. But I suppose that's a bit that you might want to debate. But the difficulty with going through consultation is it would then delay the us accepting the year 3 as the annual plan. That would then delay that until we.
Yeah, no, thanks, Pam. I've got that. But so there'll be no submissions.
No formal submissions. So we'll still be going out, and there'll be, as it says there, we'll still have this whole process happening on your side. Also, the idea is, we've got certain key stakeholders, which last year when we didn't consult either, we still went out to various stakeholders, and they provided in some cases written feedback. So there'll still be the opportunity for feedback. It just won't be, if you like, managed and collated into a formal hearings process. But council will still be able to get all of that and review that feedback to form their own view on whether that has any impact on this annual plan. But more importantly, I think we're going to get good feedback for what we need to consider for the long-term plan rather than this annual plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, you had your hand up. You've dealt with that. Great. Brian, have you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Weir.
I just wanted to go back to sort of what Tim was looking at as well. We've had this 20% increase proposed And then I trust both Nick and Pam that you know, your ability to bring that down to the 18.8 that we're at now. But I sort of just wanted to expand and you mentioned it was the loss of FTN consents team, Nick, that helped bring that down to the 18.8 rather than the 20 point something. Was that the only major gap that we've managed to find, and why was the FT there if it wasn't needed, or was that a proposed, you know, hire for next year that why isn't that going to happen now? Like, just sort of wondering.
Joe can probably answer, but it was a review of the, you know, Consents was reviewing their staff requirements in relation to the amount of fees and charges that they and the work they think they'll be doing. But Joe could probably comment.
Yeah, so over the last week, we have focused heavily on process efficiency and changes. And it was just drawing in line the FTEs with the huge amount of work the team is actually able to get through. So we had 700 applications last year, all in timeframes, and we just want to continue that way. So didn't need that FTE there. Yeah.
So that FTE was likely not going to be hired regardless.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm.
I suppose my question is when I look at the full figures that we're going up actually from 110 in our long-term plan to 113 in our annual plan, which is actually only 3.25%. So we've done some pretty good things. But in reality, and there is a question, in reality, the only place, unless someone comes along and gives us a bunch of cash, the only place we can retrieve that money, there's two places we can retrieve that money. You can whack your bus fares up, or you whack your rates up. And that's about the two levers we can pull. So we're not whacking the bus. I can tell you now, we're not whacking the bus fares up because there's people shooting around the table. But in reality, the only place we can get that 3.25% from is from our rates. And when we look at that rates, that actually does reflect them taking it from 12 to 18.8%. So that's the consequences of the way that efficiency-wise and absorbing inflation, we've actually done that very well. But what I want, my question is, because I'm really reticent to ask every year, go away and chop money back, because invariably what staff will do will load it up because they know Kevin's going to ask that question to chop it back. But what the question that I want to know is actually what's presented to me, is that the very best way for us to implement the work plan that we have already decided to do? CE.
That's our view. It's the very best way. And the reason I say that with some confidence is because we are a lean organisation that has tried to grow to meet the needs of our community and achieve the work program which you've asked us to provide for our community. So Nick's already mentioned, or Richard might have mentioned, that sometimes during the year there are still additional things that happen, and there are, and there will be overs and unders. No budget ends up being perfect, I promise you. You know, we know we already are aware that there's some additional work which we're going to have to find some money for. The lake strategy is an example. So look, my honest view is this is a budget we can work within and deliver a program of work.
Thank you.
Councillor McCall, and then we're.
Well, just quickly, so my take on it, for us to reduce our rating number, the only way we can reduce the rating number from the currently 18.8% anywhere lower has got to come out of staff expenses. It's the only wriggle room left. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I think staff costs make up what?
Well,
staff costs plus staff expenses.
Well, staff costs are about a third.
About a third. So
30.
I mean, there's other things we can try and cut, but yeah, at the end of the day, some of those costs are completely fixed. Rentals, for instance, we can't change those.
Is that all, Councillor McCall?
You know, it's
yeah. Councillor Ware.
Last question at this stage on this issue, but I just wanted to ask Pam And Nick, if you feel personally that the 20% originally proposed would put us in a better position to complete the work program that we've currently got in a more timely manner.
No, look, I think at the end of the day, what happened was that our finance team went away and they looked at the 21% and they found that that it was only 18.8%, and I'd take their word for that. So I think they were real adjustments, not cutbacks. My commitment has always been that we will deliver the program, and actually not delivering the full work program is a much greater loss of efficiency than necessarily fighting over 1 or 2% in the budget.
Councillor Somerville.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is probably a question for the Chief Executive. Would reducing the rates increase below the recommended here 18.8%, would that likely increase pressure on staff? And I guess I'm asking that because I'm concerned about staff well-being and aware that many of them are already under a great deal of pressure.
So, so my view is, sorry, if we're talking about budget holders, we're generally talking about managers at some level or other. And that's where a lot of pressure does sit. And that comes down ultimately to the pressure from above and how challenged we choose to manage those staff in terms of their budget management responsibilities. Again, my view is, you know, as a manager, I have got a responsibility for people management, project management, financial management, and I actually see it in that order. So the biggest loss you can have in productivity is if you don't have happy staff. The focus on project management or program management is about completing the work program. That's my biggest responsibility as a chief executive. The financial management responsibility I see as extremely important, but the third most important of those three. So if I was the chief executive coming into this particular annual plan, you know, the final year of the long-term plan, my view is that we would, you know, my preference is 18.8%, but I would, if I was managing staff, I would live with the 2% reduction and manage that in a way that wouldn't overly cause those managers additional stress.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
I've got a question, I think, for you, CEO. And there's two parts to it. Predicated on the recommendations or resolutions we've been given as preferred today is work that we've done in a workshop, which I think was not public, and a generalisation of what the rates impact are. We have failed to receive, I think it has been discussed, I'm pretty sure it was discussed, examples of what rate rises are. And I'm absolutely tired of hearing 18.8% average, $54. I went through a terrible stadium debate where it was a coffee a week, and that isn't how it plays out to so many people. The problem is that isn't a really good basis for making a decision if we don't know actuals. And the question for me is, how do we get that information in order to actually understand what the effect is to make a decent decision of whether it should be significant change? Because if it's more than 18.8% on $100,000, for example, at some people's rates, I would say that would be pushing us to that significance.
Yeah. Look, the only thing I can offer you is that we can deliver those examples of typical rating households and the impact it will have on their particular rates, and we can put that on our website or on social media and that quite easily.
Yeah, we can go through. I mean, we have, if you go back last year, I remember when we did the about this time when we were doing the debate on whether we should decrease last year's increase, we gave you a series of tables that we'd actually, again, it was in a workshop, but we gave you a whole series of tables with different examples. We can do different things. We do those examples later in the piece when we go to set the actual rates and rates resolution, but we just haven't done them to date, because it is to go through and start to take the numbers that we've got and then flow them through the actual rates database and get the examples just takes a little bit more time. But typically when we go out as well, we also do actually put that, and we will have the rates calculator. We weren't proposing to do that this year, but we can go away and have a look at how quickly we could pull that together.
Yeah, let's do that.
Typically, what we do for people when we want to do it quickly is we take what they've got, and we'll have a percentage that they can. We know what the percentage increase is on the different rate types, and then they can just apply that. It'll apply to it, and then they'll be able to see their own individual example. But then we can go and just do some examples around what median, rural commercial properties are in the various districts.
My view is we need to do that because it's an important communication to our communities and to our ratepayers, give them a good signal in terms of what they can expect when they get their rates demand. It's an important part of the way we communicate with our ratepayers, and I think Kate's making a really valid point. In terms of the decision, which Kate is also challenging us on, in terms of the fact that 18.8% is only an average. Can you give me some confidence, Nick, around, I know you said earlier that, for instance, the Taieri, which are some of our largest ratepayers, that their increases will, in terms of targeted rates, will be in line with what was already in the LTP, so they shouldn't be, they're already expecting what those increases, and they already know what those increases are. But can you give me some confidence around if there were people who would be significantly impacted by what we're proposing in this rates increase? Because they could only be targeted rates or really high value property.
Well, it will depend. You've got targeted rates. So the way we've got it is targeted rates are going up as they were proposed to increase in the LTP, and varying targeted rates had increases in all 3 years of the LTP, because we had some work programs that were new and stepping up, like biosecurity, and we had other things where we're trying to recover deficits that are already there. So we just had consistent increases over the 3 years. So those amounts that we set in the LTP are what we've got in this annual plan, and it's not changing. But if you take, for example, most people, a lot of people have paid the transport rate as a targeted rate, because just about every property in Dunedin pays it. There's 55,000 odd properties in Dunedin. 50,000 of them actually get the targeted transport rate. Both of those targeted transport rates are going up almost 20% in year 3. So yes, that'll be there. And then it's a pretty simple formula, because that one is CV based. So if you own, a $1 million, $4 million, $5 million property, whatever your rates are, it's not 20% of the capital value, but whatever your rate was, it'll be going up 20%.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is that there won't be anyone who's going to get a huge shock, because for most people, the percentage will be 18.8% if it's not a targeted rate. And even for those targeted transport rates, they're all around the same percentage. So, so you're not telling me, in terms of the council making a decision, which Kate was suggesting would be hard to make, that there's going to be, other than the fact this is an 18.8% increase, which is a significant shock for all of us, I understand that, that there will be any additional surprises.
And we would have gone out at the time of the LTP in year 1, probably, I think, highlighting exactly what the impacts would be on targeted rates in certain districts as well at that time, and that hasn't changed. And then exactly as you said, it's fairly easy to work out the percentage on the general rate. Yep.
Sorry.
But yeah, sorry, Dr. Borum, you just gave a what do you call it, promise, I suppose, that we would be able to do that and communicate. Yeah.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't get that communication out very quickly, Nick, in terms of some example,
Sorry.
typical property.
The comms is one piece.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not the test today. The test today is that we know what that is today, so that we can make that choice of significance today. And I'm sorry, I'm not in that space. I'm getting no comfort that it's simple. If it's simple, we should have received it already. And there are a lot of people that we've got examples of, the people in Outram who've got new houses who got an absolute shock in October last year when they got a rates bill increase, who weren't part of that consultation because their houses weren't built, who won't have a foggy as to what their rates increase. I mean, I don't know that anyone who's bought a house ever who's gone and said, oh, what do they think this rate's going to be in 3 years' time? And on those properties, I don't think we have messaged it particularly well in the past. And for me, if it's going up more with that inflationary effect, we should be really, really careful we know this. It's not a great front page story otherwise. And I'm not trying to be difficult. I had thought we would be getting that today.
Yep.
The other part of that is, if we've got an underspend, the other question I was going to ask, if we've got an underspend, and therefore that makes me think that we're not up to the work program, we've already said that there is a rating system that we've got to review, and we know that there should be other people in that. There are other people, it's not a particularly fair system. Why would we be putting that up now without that review having been done when we had asked it to be done in order to, before we set the rates? And so what I'm going to be asking later on is, what is the effect of not increasing the flood schemes on the Taieri rate increase any more than they're paying now in order for that review, which is not those people's fault that it hasn't happened, until that review's done, because we've had it clearly told to us that there are other people that should be rated for that as well. The papers that we've received have suggested there's people when you're doing, you should equally be part of that. We're not in a position to consult at the moment, so we haven't got the paperwork finished. And so it's unfair.
So my view is, look, and to some extent, I take this on my own chin because I did promise some of the ratepayers in Lower Taieri, who some of our most largest ratepayers at the ORC, that we would try and do a review of those that rating model. But it's now my view that we have to leave that as part of the LTP process, because it's, in my view, a significant rates review, which we probably have to carry out right across the board. So my view is that we haven't got time to do that for the annual plan in any case, so it's best to leave that for the LTP. Look, from my perspective, I hear what you're saying, Kate, but I haven't heard anything from Nick that concerns me to the extent that it concerns you.
Right, we have Councillor Malcolm, then Mepham, Kelleher and Laws.
Right. Just backing up what Councillor Wilson said, when we were actually doing these papers, because it is quite an easy thing to push a button that we're told, but perhaps we should have those models in the papers that we get when we're trying to make those decisions. So it goes out to the general public anyway. There's not when we generally consult or send it out, it tells you what your rates are possibly going to be, but we should sort of have that now.
I think it's really helpful. I think that's been really helpful.
So
And look, I'm happy to take that on the chin.
Yeah.
We'll put out that information in the next week. I don't think it'll make any difference to people's expectations around rates, and so I don't think it should be a reason for putting off the decision today. But I do accept that we could provide you that information in the future.
Yeah. So my question relates to the graph on so we item 24, the graph on page 20. Oh, where's my number? Come up number on page 29. Well, it's each year at Audit and Risk and to the council, we have been warned we've been told by the auditor that we have to have a balanced budget. Again, we are going to go out with a budget that shows a deficit of $2.3 million. When do we actually address that? Because I mean, look, to be honest, I don't think I can sign off any budget at any increased level that is actually not going to show us a balanced budget or a very good reason that auditors will be happy with for us to go into that position again.
Look, I mean, mostly I probably expect Nick to answer this because I suspect there was a deficit budget planned in the LTP, so you've been known about it for some time. My personal view is that the auditors ought to be more concerned about us underperforming our budget than whether it's necessarily in deficit or not, given the fact that our group is actually includes also the assets we own within the port. So my view would be that if I was an auditor, I would say, okay, well, you've chosen a deficit budget, but you've also underperformed that, so it's even a bigger deficit. Now, that was the concern that I thought the auditors were sharing with us last year, and we've done that 5 years in a row too. So at some point, if I was on this board, I'd be holding the CEO to account to ensure that the budget's achieved, not that, we're not worried too much about whether it's a slight deficit or not, given that we own a company that makes a massive profit every year. But that's a separate issue.
Councillor Mufam.
The conversation's moved on quite a bit since I first put my hand up. But just look, going back to the rates impact and the table you've got in there, Nick, you're showing a general rate increase of 22.6% and a targeted rate increase of 15.2%, averaging out at the 18.8. So that was the breakdown. Kate, I think you were sort of talking about that, but we don't want to have a discussion at the moment. The other thing I am interested in is that I'm not happy with 18.8% as a rate increase. I would be happy for some fiscal pressure, some fiscal responsibility to go back on management to work within a 16.8% rate increase. Tim, you have mentioned that 2% is doable. You can do it, and there's a certain amount of tension and pressure that goes back on organisational management to achieve that. Just very quickly from Nick, that I don't know if you're right, Nick, or not, but that represents about $600,000, and is certainly a lot more palatable as a rate increase as average at 16.
I probably, I'd have to.
You need your calculator.
No, 2%. Sorry, because when you said 2%, I thought you were meaning on 2% of salary cost, because we were talking about salary at the time. But the base that the percentage is based on is total rates there of 47.2 million, so 47. So 1% is 470,000.
Yep.
So we'd be looking at just under $1 million we'd have to find for 2%. Yep.
Okay. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Councillor Kelleher.
Thank you. My question is around, our last LTP, the poor Otago ratepayers suffered three big predictions, and they weren't happy about it. We weren't happy about it, but they accepted it. So now we're looking at, it's not 18.8%, it's 21.6% across general rates, because everyone pays general rates, and then targeted rates are of course targeted, so they will differ. But everyone is faced with a 12% increase plus another 10 to get us to say 21.6. So I guess my key question now is that the poor long-suffering Otago ratepayers who have been bashed about the head for the last 3 years, are they now faced with, what is your prediction for the new LTP? Are we past our big exponential rates increases? And are we going to be back to a business as usual that will have rates increases far more around inflationary figures than big exponential numbers?
Can I take that?
Probably. Wow, we're having a fight to answer that.
So Gary, my view of that is that we now have a budget that is able to deliver the program that we were asked to deliver. The impact on future long-term plan rate rises will be driven from the council table and the discussion we have about what additional or reduction in programs you want us to deliver over the next 3 years. So that is solely a decision that is for the council table to make, and then we would need to respond by advising you what the cost of the delivery of those services or projects would be. But in terms of our ability to deliver what is set within the current annual plan or long-term plan and subsequent annual plans, this is the budget that does that.
Yeah, and if I could just add, that's actually an excellent answer, but if I could add to that as well, Gary. My understanding of the history of this organisation, I wasn't here, but my understanding is that in the last LTP process, we'd already ramped up in the year before the year one. To the point that you didn't get that opportunity to really consider the work program over the next decade. We're keen to do that this time. So we agreed what was, I think, 49% increase, followed by an 18% increase, followed by a 12% increase. And they're cumulative, and the fact that we're now asking for, as you've indicated, a much higher increase due to inflation, then we're almost talking about doubling the size of this organisation and the cost of running this organisation over the last 3 years. My view is that is a fit for purpose decision, and we're now much more in line with other regional councils around New Zealand. So I think we should always maintain some sort of relativity to what's happening elsewhere in the country, and we should be expected to show that to you, that evidence. I think Michael also has asked previously that we need evidence that we're an efficient organisation, that the program that we're delivering is being delivered at a value for money, in a value for money way for ratepayers. And I'm really comfortable with that too. So, you know, we can get some of that independent analysis done at some point. My view is, yes, we've doubled in size. It's probably about where we should be. And in future, we should be looking at much more normal increases similar to other councils around the country.
Thank you. We've
Okay,
got,
thank you.
sorry, Councillor Kelleher, have you finished your questions?
Yep, that'll do for now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got Councillor Laws, and then I've got a foreshadowed motion. We've had a pretty good go at questions.
Hi. Question is, are we going to take each of the motions? It's a question of you, Chair Gretchen. Are we going to take each of the motions after this and debate them separately?
Yeah, I've got a foreshadowed motion, which I haven't heard what it is. But yeah, I was going to take them together.
Okay, and the second one, because I'd like, because they seem quite separate issues, so I was hoping that we'd take them each individually. The second one is, it's something that Pim's just said, it's just reminded me, thank you, Pim. We did agree in the workshop that we would do an efficiency review this year. And as I remember rightly, we also talked about it being independently organised or run. And that would also have the opportunity of informing us in terms of the long-term plan. The issue Pim's just addressed is, are we doing the right thing by our ratepayers? Are we really a value for money organisation? Can we add that as a motion to those that are being discussed today? It was at the workshop and I thought we all agreed on it, but it's not in the motions today.
Michael, Richard here. I agree with you. I wonder whether that is a motion or something to be agreed when we discuss the work that councillors expect to have in front of them for long-term plan discussion, rather than a motion associated with this year's annual plan. Because I agree and have been thinking about how we do that. I just don't know whether it would be clean to include it in the LT discussions we have as opposed to the annual plan motions.
Can I explain my rationale, Richard? We need that work done before we discuss the long-term plan.
Yes. Yep.
So we need it done within the next financial year, 23 to 24. So if we don't budget for it, we won't be doing it.
Yeah.
Will we? See?
Well, yeah, we would do it. We would, and that's that conversation we're having. There will be. It isn't necessarily budget line within this year's annual plan budget, but we need to fund for it, and the efficiency will be those things. Look, I'm easy. I was just.
You know me, Richard. I'm a great one for thinking that if you don't have a motion, you don't have an imperative. The last chief executive was pretty strong on the fact she wouldn't move on anything unless there was a council motion to that effect. And I just don't want us to be in that same position where we've got this sort of unwritten understanding, but then you look back and go, there's no motion to tell us to do that.
Look, I'm really comfortable with it. I'm happy for you to either add to the motion resolution directing the executive to do an efficiency review. Very comfortable.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Gretchen. Thank you, Pim. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks. Okay, I'm just noting that. We have foreshadowed motion.
So what I suggest that I move 1 to 10, but include an additional motion. The foreshadowed motion indicates a rate increase for the draft annual plan 23-24, but I'm just thinking of efficiency here. So I'm happy to move all of the listed recommendations on the paper in front of us, but include this additional motion, which would sit under number 5, because this additional motion refers to the actual rate increase, and I'll just read it, and I think Liz will be able to put it up on the screen as well. But following after number 5, recommendation number 5, this additional one is that council set the rate increase for the draft annual plan 23-24 year at 16.8%, subject to council receiving confirmation that current and future work programs will not be impacted. So it would, well, sorry, I won't speak to it yet.
Yeah, sorry, I know you've got that, and we probably need to seek a seconder, but Dr. Byron, did you wanna?
Look, I agree with
Yeah.
Kate. I think maybe the word average of 16.8. You've already just had described by Gary that the general rate increase is a bit higher than the targeted rates increase. So, but yes, we can work on an average of 16.8, which currently was proposed as an average of 18.8.
All right, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Sure, and we've potentially got an extra one again coming as well on an efficiency review, and would you?
I'm happy for Michael to tell us what it is. So
I've just sent something through to Lynn, copy Michael. And so
It might be tidy just to consider that now, too,
Absolutely.
if you're
I'm happy for
happy
it,
to
yeah.
do that. And then we'll seek a second. Councillor Mepham is going to second that, but we'll just see if we can get that other one down. Oh, well done. That's quick. Yeah.
Another one.
Got.
That's just another line in there. Potentially, or it can be subsequent. No, it has to be, no, it has to be done as part of it. You want me to tell you this?
Probably easier, yep, than bringing it into the debate and then having, yeah.
I am interested, given the lack of progress on the tire rate, that we defer any increase in the tire rate. It's still substantial, don't get me wrong. We defer any increase until the review is done. They pay what they paid this year. I can't justify an increase until I know that it's fair. I appreciate that they need to have money put into that budget and everything, but to increase something that I know isn't fair, I just can't do it.
Yeah, so my response to you would be, we've told that group of ratepayers in the current long-term plan have known about what their rates would be in year 3 for 3 years. So it would be much tidier from my perspective to commit to the increase they were told 3 years ago than to say we're not going to increase it on last year, which would be a significant reduction. So that would be my preference if you change your wording to say that we agree to commit to the rate that they were told 3 years ago.
Sorry, we don't, yeah, so the increase isn't as substantial as this increase, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's sorry, they're getting into debate, but whether it's general or targeted as well.
It's the targeted.
This one's just a targeted rate.
Okay, yeah.
We'd have to go above the another 6, so we needed to.
Councillor Noon, you'd have to be willing to put that one in.
I'm just trying to process in my mind and from the logistics of it, how we would make that work. It's essentially ring fencing an existing group of targeted ratepayers.
Sorry, let me help. Nick, I thought I heard you say that targeted rate, we're not proposing increasing it.
No, we've
From what, same as all.
the increase on the targeted rates, apart from civil defence, because that had an increase in this year's, so it's staying the same. All the other targeted rates, the amount of rates is staying the same as what we said it was going to be in the LTP.
Yep.
So there is increases in the targeted rates, but it's exactly the same increase that we had already in the LTP.
So all we're doing is committing to these people that we're going to do something that's we're already signing off. So it's not really adding anything.
No, what I see it is that they should be neutral until we can justify it, because we know that's not right.
Yeah, Andrew's going to need to
Well, look, I agree with the concept. I think from a practical point of view, is this possible, Nick, from a to implement something like this, excluding a group of targeted ratepayers, is it able to be done simply?
Yeah, well, all the targeted rates have their own line, their own rate line. So effectively, at the moment, we're just assuming the amount that we've got in for the annual plan is the same as what was in the LTP. That can be changed. The difference will be, it'll mean that those rates would then, because they'll stay the same as what they were, we will have less. So if those particular schemes are in deficit, they'll go further into deficit. Yeah. If they've got a surplus, then potentially it's not going to impact too much. But then the question would be, you're saying where you say the Tyree, I assume that's the 3 Tyree schemes. But then what you might well get is then you get the Clutha popping up going, well, what about us? Why is ours still going up?
Yeah, it doesn't seem a clear principle.
I suppose politically,
We
sorry,
haven't
I'm speaking
reviewed
this, but politically, we run that risk, and we've got to carry that as governors, how we would deal with that going forward. But I would suggest that this conversation has been going on for quite a period of time. There've been a number of us in the room with listening to concern raised by these ratepayers. So I think I can live with it based on that conversation has been going on for probably 12 months plus, probably since the last annual plan, actually. Two. Oh, sorry. Yes, so I can live with the
So what's the motion?
So it would be that the targeted rates that were subject to the review in the February 2021, I think it was, or no, those that were subject to review stay at the 2022-23 level until the review is undertaken. But they're underspent anyway.
Happy for that to be included.
It would have to go above, 6 though, I think.
Well, you just better specify what. Yeah. It's a Tyree flood and drainage scheme, isn't it?
I can live with it. I would try and ensure that we weren't going to reduce the work program for obvious reasons, because we're not going to get less flood events.
Yep, there's some worry about going into deficit. But anyway, Councillor McCall.
Can I just make a comment? We're allowed to just do comments?
Well, they seem to be, yep.
I'm very, very uncomfortable about this because this is policy on the fly. It's policy that's in my time on the council, this has never been brought up. This is the first time that this has been brought up in any meeting that I've been to, specifically to Tyree rates. We're singling out one small section of our community to give some form of special treatment or recognition. At the end of the day, the targeted rates have been, it's all part of the long-term plan to get from A to B, and we're in our growth phase of the council. We get from A to B. We've got 3 years to grow our council to a new fit-for-purpose council, and then we move on to maintain, basically a maintenance council or do our job and do our job really well. This is for an organisation like this to have on the fly motions like this, I just think is unrealistic, and I just think we need to really think really careful about doing something with no background tool whatsoever.
Right, do we have a second?
So-
Sorry, Councillor McCall,
Yeah.
you can talk to it in a minute, I think. We might take it separately than the other ones, but we got a seconder for.
Yep.
It, if it is.
Do you want me to move this?
Oh,
into a
probably
separate
already, they're
motion?
already got a seconder when it was. Yeah, we might do the Andrew's initial intention, which was the 1 to 12, and then take the.
This is an amendment to his motion because it has to be in the motion, otherwise it wouldn't sit up. Sorry.
Thanks, Kate.
So are the mover and seconder happy to incorporate this additional?
Yes, yes.
You can still vote on the first 12 and then on.
I can't second, I can't second 13.
I thought you.
Yeah, we don't know.
No, I don't know the value, the dollar value of what that is at all. I can't second.
So-
Sorry.
You're retracting your.
No, I support everything down to 12. As a
Okay.
seconder, but I can't support 13 because I don't know the value. I have no idea.
All right,
what the
well,
dollar
we've got a
value of that
mover
is.
and a second, all of them with an amendment there as well. Still intend to take 1 to 12 together. Now would actually be the time for debate, but we have had quite a lot already. If there's anything particularly that needs said, and obviously the mover gets to speak. Councillor Noon.
Just very briefly, this is not an easy process. As governors of the Otago Regional Council, it's probably one of the most important decisions we make on an annual basis. I would just highlight that the reduction by 18.8 to 16.8 closes the gap in terms of an operating. So that reduces that gap. So in theory, the auditors will be a little happier. It still doesn't completely close the gap, but I think that's an important point. And I think both Pim and Richard have alluded to this request obviously requires confirmation about before the 16.8 becomes set in concrete, so to speak. It requires feedback around being able to still deliver the work programs that we've currently got and our future work programs as well. So, you know, there is a rider there. I think that any rate increase, considering the rising living costs across the board, is a hard pill to swallow for ratepayers, and obviously residents. I include residents as well, because anyone who rents indirectly pays rates through their rents. But the reality is we are committed to a considerable work program, which on reflection 2-3 years ago, we bit the bullet and decided that we needed to be, as people have already alluded to, fit for purpose. And this is another step in the right direction. We're well on track. We're well on the way, and hopefully we can get over this considerable hump in terms of a rate increase, but for the betterment of the environment, and hopefully that our ratepayers and residents see that this is a long-term investment in our region.
Thanks, Councillor Noon. Second, then Councillor Mepham. I'll ask if you'd like to speak, but I'll also double check that you're happy to second the amendment.
Are other councillors able to speak to this debate?
Just doing, yes, they can. I'm just doing the mover and the seconder speaking first, and then the other
Okay.
councillor.
Thank you.
Happy to speak in regards to 1 to 12.
Yeah, and what, are you happy to second 13 or not?
No.
Okay, so we'd need another seconder for that. Yep, and now you're welcome to speak.
Yeah, look, I'm happy with targeting 16.8% rate increase. Overall, I think there is a level of fiscal responsibility being pushed back down to organisational management. There has to be a bit of attention there. It has to be operating. So that's, you know, going back and looking at our future programs and seeing that we don't really influence negatively those outcomes is also good. You've mentioned that 2% is something that you can work with. I wouldn't want to go below that. So I'm happy with that. I'm also happy with the efficiency review. I'm supporting that because it's something that we should be doing anyway.
Thank you. Right, we'll come to Councillor Scott now. Ben Kelleher.
Oh, thank you. I also support the 16.8%. I don't think it's a number that any of us particularly wanted, but it's nevertheless it's appropriate. As Tim has said, there's some tension there. So, you know, we are seeking some savings at the end of the day, it's consistent with the LTP. It's incorporating the inflation allowance. One of the positives from my perspective is that we're locking in the $2 bus fare, so we're taking some responsibility there. I also support Councillor Law's proposal for an efficiency review. I'd like that to be independent. It's certainly, I look forward to that. And in relation to the final point, the Tari, I support what Lloyd had to say, that we should be avoiding policy on the fly. So I will not be supporting that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelleher.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this one's a challenging one for me, I'm afraid. It was a big effort across those last 3 years for our ratepayers. My ratepayers in my region here have felt especially bashed by the ORC. My blood is boiling at the moment because I've heard some commentary very recently around why aren't Manuhira Kia farmers further advanced in their efficiency improvements that they could be doing on farm based on what you might be able to see from the road. And the reason for that is because of our council and what it did through Plan Change 7. So my region, and it goes wider than the Manuhira Kia, are feeling especially hammered by the ORC. And then what they've had to suffer is substantial rates increases across the past 3 years, year in, year out, and are continuing to have to gather funds for a war chest to fight yet again into the future environmental groups and the ORC, because they know that future policy is not going to, in our land and water plan, will not be favouring an overall balanced outcome. So I certainly won't be supporting the fact that you've taken all together and 1 to 12 is easy for me. Then I won't be supporting 1 to 12. I don't accept the increases in charges to the extent that we've raised to. I think it's double dipping. We've increased the salary cost, and that salary cost is paid no matter what because the staff are there. And then it is additional fees that again more so affects my people than anybody else. It's not only rural here, it's urban. There is genuine hardship out there, and I get regular phone calls when rates demands are sent out. You know, you look, I think we're going to discuss this tomorrow, but a big part now of our income, it's pushing towards, I guess, 1%, will be penalty charges for late payments of our rates. So, you know, the organisation, I think, takes the ratepayers for granted. What I also don't accept is that we're able to pluck a number like 2% and say, well, can we go from 18.8 to 16.8? And then after we've already asked for efficiency and prudence across the organisation through all of this process, which is a number of workshops, we suddenly can do that. So, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I don't support the motions as they stand. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I make a point of order?
Okay, point of order, yeah.
Just that we seem to be discussing 1 to 12 and we've had an amendment moved. So we need to debate the amendment, joining the amendment to the motion first and then vote on that before we can debate 1 to 12.
We've got it as a separate motion now. So Councillor Noon and Councillor Malcolm move the secondary motion.
Very
Sorry, so we've got two motions,
Yeah.
two separate motions
Yes.
now rather than amendments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Law's waiting patiently. Thanks, Councillor Weir. Councillor Law,
Hi.
it's your next.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all, the mover of the motion, Councillor Andrew Noon, quite rightly stated in his preamble to supporting this particular motion, that 3 years ago we were to contemplate an organisation that wasn't fit for purpose and that could not do the job either statutorily or to the expectation of our community. And so as a consequence of that, we sat down, I remember, in Cromwell, and as Andrew also said in his opening statements to this motion today, we bit the bullet. And as a consequence of that, the argument is we set out a rating increase and a staffing increase that was to bring us, we hoped, to a better state that we could do the job that we were made to do, and also realistically that we could measure ourselves against other regional councils, the way they set themselves up, and expect that we were their equal in terms of efficiency and effectiveness as well. I made this point last year, but it's worth making again. We did that in a very benign national and international environment. And last February, almost exactly to this point now, a year ago, the world changed. And it's my view that both local and central government, but particularly local government, hasn't changed. It thinks the same way that it thought 3 years ago. It thinks the same way that it thought 13 months ago. And it thinks the same way today. And this is perhaps the most graphic proof of that. If you add the 49% of 3 years ago, the 18% of last year, and now the 17% that is proposed this coming financial year, we will have increased rates by 84% over the last 3 years. 84%. Now, we know that the income of the people that we're servicing, that we know that the value of the Otago economy, we know that the conditions in which we are delivering this 84% rate increase are not matched anywhere near by an 84% rate in income of any of those organisations. We've had plenty of opportunity to think about the way in which we do things, and more importantly, to stage the things that we're doing. I'm disappointed that we're having a review this financial year, when really it was something we could have done and should have done over the last financial year. And I will say that we do need an amendment to make sure, pick up Councillor Scott's point, that we need an independent review. That's what we sought in the workshop. This is no commentary on PIM, and this is no commentary on our current our new chief executive. It's just an independent viewpoint, gives you the ability, or somebody else the ability, to look at something that you might have missed. When it comes to communications, when you increase your proposal over 40% in terms of rate increase for this financial year than you had signalled 3 years ago in your long-term plan, you need a decent communication strategy. And I think when you talk about stakeholders, I regard that as an insulting, and I would like to strike that almost from the verbiage of the Otago Regional Council communications team in future. Everybody who lives in Otago, every person who pays rates is a stakeholder. And the idea that some organisations have more say in how that ratepayer money is spent around this table than others strikes at the very heart of democracy to me. And it's anathematic to my concept of natural justice. That our communications plan is not going to every ratepayer to explain why we are increasing their rates by 40% this year over what we'd anticipated spending is simply not good enough. I've said all this in workshops. This council has gone a different way. I just wanted you to know, though, that I still hold these views passionately and will continue to say that there was an alternative and that we have turned away from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Weir, Somerville, and then Wilson, and Forbes. Councillor Weir.
Over the time that's taken us to get to this point, throughout workshops and stuff, we've had a proposal of 20 point something, and I can't even remember what the actual percentage point was at this point, but we weren't happy with that, and we asked for it to be brought back down to the 18.8%. And Tim and Nick have gone through and found those cuts, and said that, you know, it won't affect the work program, and I trust that, but I don't feel that a further 2%, I'm not confident that a further 2% wouldn't impact the work program, whether it's the thoroughness or the timeliness or the staff lost my train of thought, but all the staff's ability to actually do their job. I don't think that 2% is going to be helpful for us in the long term. But it's like the 18.8%.
Okay, Councillor Summerall.
Councillor Weir has stolen the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, look, it's really important that we resource this organisation adequately. I'm mindful of the effects that rates increase have on our ratepayers, but I'm also mindful of the very important work the council does. All the information and the discussion we've had today and at our previous workshops actually tell me that we are better going for that 18.8% increase. As Councillor Weir said, the proposal originally for 21, that has come down already, savings made there. So in this list of proposals, I'm very happy to support proposals 1 to 12, except proposal 6, where I will be supporting the 18.8%.
Well, it sounds of it, we are going to have to take them separately. Yeah, thank you. Right, next person to speak. Have you finished? Sorry, Councillor Summerall.
Thank you.
Wilson.
Oh, thank you. One question for clarity. We've all talked about workshops. Were those public workshops or not? When done the annual plan? That was what I had thought. I'm finding this really difficult. I've absolutely no doubt that we've got a mandate to grow this organisation and to do some work. And in the last 2 annual plans, we've had a lot of support for the work in the direction we're going. That gives me some comfort in doing this work. What I am not sure of, I'm not convinced that we have got the information before us that we can actually make the decisions that we're being asked to on both, whether it's on special consultation, because I don't know that we know the numbers to do that. The discussion document doesn't give me any comfort in that regard. And when you're looking at, and I'm sorry, I think, Michael, you've been generous with your calculations, a general rate, which some people with that is all they're paying, is going from 9 to 22%, isn't it? Those are things we should actually really be clear about how that affects people. I think on the graph, 9.1% to 22.6% on a general rate, if that is all you're paying, and that may be a substantial part of your rate, that's significant. That's significant for people who are on a benefit who are not getting an increase and their every other cost is going up. I think we've, and the number of times that I have heard people not realising they're saying only 16.8% today instead of 18.8, it's almost galling to us not to appreciate how tough this is going to be on people. And it's a legacy issue that we've all inherited generally, or not most of us, from lack of investment earlier. My job is to understand the effect of that rate rise on this year, but it also, I don't think there's enough knowledge here of how much of that is a reserve funded legacy going forward into the future generations. I don't think anyone here could easily say and put their hand on what that effect of what you're just suggesting will have on the future rates, because because the operational costs are not being covered by a true rate increase that it should be, but putting operational costs into a deficit and a reserve budget. Those are sort of things that actually we should have, and we've discussed them in those private workshops, and we haven't got that data. So I'm actually really annoyed by that, because I had thought we were going to get this so we'd have a much better idea of what a farm, a commercial property, and it's not just farms, commercial properties are paying substantial rates, and we haven't got that. I think we're doing all ourselves a disservice, and I think we're doing a disservice to our ratepayers not knowing that. And I just don't think I think this is a light touch of a report personally. So I don't think I'm doing my job, but I also know that we have to go ahead and set a budget. So I'm finding this really tough. I'm going to, may I speak to that other motion so I only speak once?
Oh,
Well, that
No.
goes,
I wonder if you could do it separate.
okay,
I think
I'll
it
do it
might,
separately, I'll do it
because
separately.
yeah.
Thank you, okay. My gut feeling at the moment is that I would rather defer this till we get that data. It isn't okay to know that data after we've made what is an onerous decision today. And I don't take this lightly. This is going to be really hurtful if this rates rise. And if I can't put my hand on what that effect looks like, I'm sorry, I'm feeling really, really uncomfortable. This was not the report that I had thought we were going to get out of the workshops. I'm sorry. Albeit, I do appreciate we need to set a budget at some stage, and I would love to know those timeframes.
Councillor Forbes.
Okay, I'd just like to say that I support my colleagues Alan and Elliot around the 18% rate rise. And my reason for that is it's not going to get easier. There is nothing going to get easier. We've needed to scale up our organisation to meet the demands and the challenges that are frankly hurtling towards us, as we're just watching up there, up north. We don't do that by scaling back at this point or even slowing down at this point. We've only just started to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and to get ourselves going and to join in the realm of the other regional councils and get in there. We have staffed up. We're involved in the things that our communities want us to be involved in. They've told us they want us to be involved in. We're doing work that didn't used to get done, and it's now getting done. And our communities want us to do that work. Lakes strategy is just a classic example of that. I know the rates rise is significant. I know some people are facing very tough economic times, by no means all people. A lot of those things are outside of the control of this council, and I do believe that this is significant, but in return for the work that's being done, it isn't. So I don't want that to be taken out of context. The work that we are doing is highly significant and worth being invested in, is what I really want to say there. We've signalled it, we've discussed it, we've consulted it, and it's been hit by inflation, and here we are. PIM is trying to find ways to cut a measly 2% out of it. I don't think it's worth it. I think we need to crack on higher economy, and that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think, sorry, Councillor McCall, and then I think we're done. Oh, sorry.
Well, I just think at the end of the day, I'll just go back to where I was. This long-term plan with it's a 3-year plan to grow a council from a council that's been underfunded and not really performing in the way that we would expect from our regional council. There's been massive investment in time and staff, particularly staff, and now we're getting a council that's just getting to the stage of being fit for purpose. So now we've got a council that is just getting to the stage where it's fit for purpose and they can move forward. We, as a governance group, need to support the council. It's rate increases of this magnitude are hard to take, and they're going to be and they will be hard work for some people. But at the end of the day, we have a duty to provide for our environment and provide pathways for our future generations. We cannot do that when we're forever cutting our budget and having no wriggle room whatsoever. So I think we've got the capacity, we've doubled our organisation, we've got growth pains. It's not always going to be perfect. At the end of the day, we're an organisation, we're in a massive growth phase. It's never going to be perfect, but at the end of the day, we want to get out the other side with an organisation that can work and can go forward. So I'm probably of the opinion that we've been there, we've been to the workshops, we've made some cuts, and now we got to our 18.8%, which was 20.1, as Elliot said. But all of a sudden, we're just doing like a token 2% cut. Now, we have a reputation of not performing to our budgets and having overruns. We also have a reputation for having deficit budgets. So the only way that we can fix this is either not deliver or increase our income. So what we're all we're asking for here in the 3rd year of the current long-term plan is to stay on track and cover cover the inflation adjusted costs to stay on track, to be able to have a fit for purpose organisation so that we can then go to the next stage, which is be a mature organisation that can actually support our communities how our communities expect to be supported. It is a large increase in dollar terms. It's going to be larger for others, but in reality, our new rates level is still at the very lower end. I think we're still going to be the second last rating based council in the country. So we have to congratulate the people and ourselves for actually taking the bold move over the last 2 years to actually build a council that can go forward, or else we would all become relevant in our seats. So I think we need to continue to support with that. So I'd be supporting 18%. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm.
I congratulate Councillor Noon for coming up with this option because what it does say is we would like our rate impost to be less, but we do appreciate that we are cognizant of what our work plans are and what the pressures are on our staff. So it is a very well-crafted message. We have made no cuts from our workshops. We've simply gone back to from the 21.7 and actually priced everything that was on there correctly. So we actually haven't made any cuts. So that's, I need that very, very clear, and that was explained to us by Mr. Donnelly. What we've asked in previous workshops is for staff to go back and look at ways of reducing this impost on rates. No one has come back to say, let's change the timing of a work plan. Let's change the timing of a staff recruitment. Do we actually need all of that staff? No one has come back to us and said we may be duplicating something that's already being done out in the public sector. And I can give you a prime example of that will be the integrated catchment, where we are employing people, catchment staff doing catchment work. MPI are doing the same, and we've got our own target catchment group people going around. And there's, have we got far too many staff doing that? Do we actually have to look at that? So no one has come back to me and said, actually be really good for staff if we slow down this work program so we can release pressure, because we know everyone's under pressure, so that we can release pressure. That will also decrease the rate impost for that year, but that plan will carry on, because this is not a race. We've actually got to have it right. If we go to the 18.8%, will every work plan be completed? Because we haven't completed the ones from last year. There's testing stations up in the Waitaki that have been sitting there for many, many months now, not completed, and that task was meant to be completed. So something's wrong. So that money hasn't been spent. So that work plan hasn't been completed. Are we actually going to finish that work plan? Because at the moment, to make sure we deliver to our ratepayer, we should be finishing that one and finishing this year's work plan, and not put the staff under more pressure. It actually just doesn't add up to me. I was absolutely instrumental in getting the charge right to ensure that the Skelton report was never written again in the frame that was written, because we had to become, and I was exceptionally, I wasn't happy about the 48%, but I was sure that we had to upscale. I have no problem with that at all, but it is the time now is to reflect and say, can we juggle things around to take the pressure off our communities? So if I say yes to this increase, or if I say no and get voted against me, what story are we going to tell? What story are we going to tell to our public? Because we're not very good at saying what we are doing. And we are doing some exceptional things, but we're not actually saying that. So I need some sort, if this goes through at whatever rate, we need to actually support that, because as staff, our staff, you're doing tremendous work, but we're not putting that out there. We need more communication to sell what we are doing to our communities. Simple as that, because there's a lot of good stuff doing. why can we not look at the time of our work plans, the timing of staff replacements if we actually need them, and what is actually happening in the public sector at the moment, and are we duplicating? So that's three simple tasks that look, and that's why I don't want to actually say 16.8%. I just want to say, is this the best way to do it? Is this the most efficient way to do it? So look, I'm very happy with the motion, not happy with 16.8, but I'll support the motion.
Just going to double check. I don't think Councillor Scott has had a chance to speak. I could be wrong there, but I don't think so. If he wants to.
I'll just make the comment. I did speak before to a degree. I'll just make the comment that I've listened to all the arguments, and I will be supporting all the options except for the Tari. And I've listened to the debate and I've changed my mind. I will now support the 18.8. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, I guess at this point I would like to speak briefly. I support the 18.8 as well. I just don't think that the job of the ORC in focusing on environment, safety and resilience and public transport particularly is certainly not diminishing. We did wide consultation in year one of the LTP. This is really the existing work program of that, which we've agreed with the community. This is our plan. We have had many workshops together. We haven't identified things that we want to cut out because we believe they are important. That's our role. And nobody else can take the blame for not having done that. We believe that our work programs are the ones that we need to be doing, and so does our community, because we consulted them in year one. In telling our story about what we do, to a degree, that's our job as well as governors. We do a crucial job as environmental custodians in biodiversity, biosecurity, land, air, water, very key work in emergency management. I mentioned earlier today we have one of the civil defence and emergency management staff as a controller in the far north at the moment as well. Flood protection, natural hazards, climate change, public transport, regulatory and planning spaces, as well as increasing work in the enabling space, which was just spoken about. I think that we have seen a massive surge in fantastic community work in that space, and I think we are a partial part to play in that. We have also spoken about the need to maintain close contacts at a community scale with our staff, and the integrated catchment management type of work that we do does build those relationships, which have wider benefits for this council. So I think that we have well and truly considered what we do, and I believe the 8.8 is where we should be. Thank you. Now we're going to take the councillor known. Oh, sorry, you've got, yeah.
Very short one.
Yeah, sorry, right of reply.
Probably steering down a barrel of the 6 all, though the ones, everyone needs to think about that, putting the chair in a difficult position. But seriously, we're just asking for one more step in the process. We're looking at doing a little bit more homework before we settle on a number, whether it's 18.8 or 16.8. So this is just trying to be prudent, trying to just finalise and confirm one way or another whether we could settle on a 16.8. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to speak, Councillor?
Look, I think enough's been said. I won't carry on.
I thought that was just my reply.
Yes, okay. Right, okay, sorry, it's been a long debate already. I'm just grabbing all of those. We'll start then separately. So the first one then is noting the position on proposed expenditure adjustments to associated work programs in year 3. as presented in discussion section of the report. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Against.
Sorry, there was an against. The
And
first one,
recorded, please.
got that?
Yes, thank
Yeah, thank you. Second one then notes the funding impacts of the proposed adjustments to year 3 LTP as presented in discussion section of the report. All in favour?
No,
Aye.
Against?
no,
Against.
Carried.
And
3.
noted.
Okay, noted for
Yeah,
Callagher.
same, Simon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As well, Councillor Malcolm.
Do we need to take a
Against.
division on these? Here.
Well, you have to call for one if you do, but yeah,
Yeah, I suppose you have to call it. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
I'm happy with 2. I thought on 3.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, sorry, yeah, right, so we just did 2 and we wanted councillor Callagher and Wilson noted.
Thank you.
Yep, now we're on to 3. Notes that approving the proposed adjustment, sorry, they do sound similar. Notes approving the adjustments of year 3 LTP, revises the adopted financial estimates and establishes a draft position for the annual plan 23 to 24. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against. And noted, please.
Just councillor Callagher, noted, carried. Number 4, approves the proposed adjustments to year 3 long-term plan that establishes a draft position for the annual plan 23-24. Right, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
no,
Against.
No,
Carried.
Noted.
noted, please.
Noted, please.
Okay, everyone wants noted, great. 5, yeah, I have 5, aren't I? Approves proposed changes to the ORC schedule of fees and charges for inclusion in communication material provided for community feedback. All in favour? Aye. Against?
Against.
Carried.
And noted, please.
Ditto.
Yep. 6, notes the draft position for the annual plan 23-24 provides the basis for
Sorry.
Sorry, did we not have a change
6
then?
is,
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Shall I read that one out?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't.
Could you
got
put
it.
that up on, is it
Yeah,
possible to
maybe
have it on
that-
screen?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
we're saying space and counts.
Full division for this one.
It does.
Mm.
Mhm.
Are we-
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a division.
Shouldn't it write approves? Rather than sets?
Oh, well, that's,
That's 4 anyway.
depends what school you went to.
Yeah, you're probably right though.
David College, that's pretty good.
Approves.
Oh. Okay.
I'm having seats.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Andrew's happy with sets, so it's sets then. Radio, sorry. Yep,
Well, that doesn't make sense. There you go.
radio.
All these people who didn't do UE English.
Gretchen, could you read it out, please?
Yes, I'm about to. Sets the rate increase for the draft annual plan 23-24 at 16.8%, subject to council receiving confirmation that current and future work programs will not be impacted.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point of order.
Can I raise that that makes no sense, that motion? Because it doesn't have an alternative to it if the current and future work programs are going to be impacted. So there is no motion that's going to be passed setting an average annual rate increase for this year should the confirmation not be received.
Can't do it, they'll come back to us.
Oh, so we're going to have another council motion to do something that we should be doing today. That doesn't make sense. And as I understood it, there was a motion, carry on with the point of order. There were people who said that they wished for their 16.8% or an 18.8% around the table. So surely that matter should be clarified as well. Are we setting a 16 point or an 18.8% rate increase with this motion?
It's the 16.8
So that gets
subject
voted out,
to
come on, pass on the
confirmation,
motion.
which is what we've debated and what we've heard from staff was okay as well.
Order.
Another point of order.
No, but wait on. Sorry, you haven't answered the last point of order first of all. For Pete's sake, it's the English language. If this doesn't tell you what's going to happen, if the current and future work programs are going to be impacted by a 16.8%, it's subject to. So let's just say that comes back and says it will. What do you do then? So doesn't this motion need to say
Brings it
what
back
the-
to council decisions.
yeah, or whatever should happen, yeah.
Or otherwise at the end of,
And when do we get confirmation? Where does that motion say, when do we get confirmation? Is it by email or is it by council motion? It's just a little bit too much important to play around on an informal basis like this, I would have thought.
Councillor Noon, what was your
yeah, well, also,
intention
all I was
with this
going
one?
to suggest that at the end of the word impacted, adding otherwise council confirmed, otherwise council's rate increase will be 18.8%.
That makes sense. Can we just break that down so that we have just for approves the rate increase for the draft annual plan 23-24 at 16.8%, full stop. And then the next one we could have sets the rate increase to the draft annual plan 23-24 at 18.8%, full stop. That way we can either vote for it or, I mean, one will fail, the other one will.
Well, yeah, you can do an alternative motion if one fails, and I could call for one if that happens as normal. So, yep, we would, you're suggesting we just cut it off at 16.8 for now. And makes it
You have to go
tidier.
to your mover to.
Mover and seconder.
That's the second suggesting that.
Mhm.
We could adjourn and discuss this if it's going to take a really long
Good
time.
idea.
Mm.
Very good idea.
Mm.
I'm happy to move.
We're still dealing with that. Michael's point of order.
That's technically a point of order.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make it a little easier.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable with cutting it off after 16.8%. I think I understand what the move was trying to do, but at the end of the day, I don't know when exactly I would determine whether it was going to affect the work program anyway. So I think even though I understand what the mover was trying to do, I think that's where we should cut it off and vote.
It's a lot easier, yeah, it's simpler.
And I'll live with it.
I'll live with it.
Okay, now, so we're living with that. That tidies that point of order up. It now makes sense who councillor Laws preferred approves, but sets makes sense as well, in my opinion, and that's what the mover wanted. Right, next point of order.
Sorry, and I hate to make things more complex, but it would appear that the council has already approved the rate increase of an
Yeah,
average
that
of
way.
18.8 by approving the proposed adjustments up in recommendation 4.
That's
So we've
what
already
I thought at the
made that
time.
decision.
Well, this is what was confusing about the whole list of resolutions. They were,
Well, that was the motion, and we voted on we split it into
Yep.
things, but now we have voted on recommendation 4, and we have voted to approve that.
So we've simply put number 6 is in the wrong place, isn't it?
Well,
Number
Well,
6.
that was the agreed order, yep.
So I can accept that the 16.8% will overrule the earlier motion.
that's fine.
Was all part of the package. That, in other councils, you would say that you're making this subject to the motion.
I think we can.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to. I just wanted to raise that. It's a trip, so that's
Sorry,
later.
we
Yeah.
couldn't, yeah, we should have.
We've accepted
Should
what
have
we've
rearranged the
presented,
order.
but then a later motion has, if it gets voted in, will only give us 16.8% increase. And the chief executive will have to live with it. And I'm comfortable with that. So I think we should put it to a
It's
vote.
Richard.
Right. Let's put it to a vote then.
Sorry, point of order, no, point of order, Madam Chair. Sorry, sorry to do this. The rate increase for the draft annual plan at 16.8% of what? Average 16.8%?
It was average.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy.
Yep, mover's happy, the second is happy. Gonna put this now. All in favour? Okay, division's been called, sorry.
This is for, but what are we
This is
voting?
for sets the rate increase for the draft annual plan 2023-24 at an average of 16.8%. Against. Councillor Kelleher,
Against.
Councillor Laws,
Against.
Councillor Malcolm,
For.
Councillor McCall,
Against.
Councillor Metham,
For.
Councillor Noon,
Aye.
Councillor Scott,
Against.
Councillor Somerville,
Against.
Councillor Weir,
Yes.
Councillor Wilson,
Against.
and Chair Robertson.
Against.
Motion fails.
Okay, so do we have an alternative motion?
Go back to
Don't need one.
Number-
Oh, we
Just
don't
four.
need to, yeah, exactly. Sorry, good point.
So in that case, I'd rather, in that case, if you're doing it that way, so I'd want the vision taken on those ones.
Okay, calls for a
I think
division
it's
on
important
the
that we-
next ones.
So now we're saying it's 18.8.
Yep.
yes,
Number 7, notes the draft position for the annual plan 23-24 provides the basis for communicating or consulting on the count. Sorry, you can all see that now. I don't need to read. Oh, maybe I do. Councillor
Sorry.
Scott.
Sorry, Madam Chair, you don't have a rate increase at all now.
We need to have an explicit one. I'm happy to move it for 18.8 with the same wordings as number 6, but with 18.8.
there's never a rate increase in the first place.
So we have to do that.
Yep, we've talked about this, so we agreed that it wasn't in there initially. We edited that bit in because it was set up that number 4 and number 4 particularly.
We need to.
All right, so it's already there. This 6 was an extra one that was added in. Okay, we're up to 7. Notes that the draft position for the annual plan. Yeah, sorry, you can probably all read that. I probably don't need to read that out. So number 7.
Sorry, Madam Chair, could you read it out, please?
Okay, sorry. Oh, please bear with me. Notes the draft position for the annual plan 23-24 provides the basis for communicating or consulting on the council's intentions for year 3 LTP and for council to consider any final non-material adjustments leading into adoption of the annual plan. And there's a division for everything, I think.
Yes, all right. Councillor Forbes.
Where are we? I'm sorry.
Number
This
7.
number
Okay.
7. Yes.
Councillor Kelleher,
Against.
Councillor Laws,
Against?
Councillor Malcolm,
Against.
Councillor McCall,
For.
Councillor Muffin,
For.
Councillor Noon.
Aye.
Councillor Scott,
For.
Councillor Somerville,
Yes.
Councillor Ware, Councillor Wilson, Chair Robertson,
For.
motion carries 9-3.
Thank you. 8, agrees the adjustments as summarised in the discussion section of this report do not represent significant or material changes to year 3 LTP 21 to 31. Division.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Forbes.
Yes.
Councillor Kelleher,
Against?
Councillor Laws,
No.
Councillor Malcolm,
No.
Councillor McCall,
For.
Councillor Muffin,
For.
Councillor Noon, Councillor Robertson, I'm
I'm
sorry,
oh,
Councillor Scott,
For.
Councillor Somerville,
For.
Councillor Ware, Councillor Wilson,
No.
motion carries 8-4.
9, notes the options presented in this report for the approach to finalising the annual plan 23-24.
Councillor Forbes.
Yes.
Councillor Kelleher,
Against?
Councillor Laws,
No.
Councillor Malcolm,
Oh, yeah, I'm just noting it. Yep.
Councillor McCall,
For.
Councillor Muffin,
For.
Councillor Noon,
Aye.
Councillor Scott,
For.
Councillor Somerville,
For.
Councillor Ware, Councillor Wilson.
Aye.
Chair Robertson,
I
motion carries 10-2.
No. 10-3. 9-3. There was my vote against as well.
I got yours. Councillor Malcolm voted for.
yeah.
Councillor Wilson?
I voted for.
Yeah, only
Oh,
noting it.
my apologies.
Thanks. 10 approves option 1 being communicate council's intentions for the annual plan 23-24.
Yes. Councillor Forbes. Councillor Kelleher,
Totally and utterly against.
Councillor Laws,
Yeah, me too.
Councillor Malcolm,
No.
Councillor McCall,
Aye.
Councillor Muffin,
For.
Councillor Noon, Councillor Scott,
For.
Councillor Somerville,
Yes.
Councillor Ware,
For.
Councillor Wilson,
No.
and Chair Robertson.
Fine.
Motion carries 8-4.
11 directs the chief executive to prepare the supporting information for council's preferred option for finalising the annual plan 23-24.
Councillor Forbes. Yes. Councillor Kelleher,
Against?
Councillor Laws,
Abstain.
Councillor Malcolm,
He has to do it. I'm for it.
Councillor McCall,
For.
Councillor Muffin,
For.
Councillor Noon,
Aye.
Councillor Scott,
For.
Councillor Somerville,
For.
Councillor Ware,
For.
Councillor Wilson, and Chair Robertson.
For.
Motion carries 10-1 and 1 abstention.
I think we're 12 now. Directs the chief executive to complete an efficiency review. Oh, this is our final one.
Question,
We were
question.
gonna
Madam
do-
Chair, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, can I move an amendment, please, to that?
To that one, just can I talk first? Because I was just had my hand up before you.
Sorry.
Did the mover of that before we not asked to put in an independent efficiency
Yes.
review?
Oh, right.
That was correct. That's correct.
You're both raising that point.
Sorry, Michael.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's correct.
Yep, thank you. So directs the chief executive to complete an independent efficiency review in the 23-24 financial year to inform the LTP process.
Councillor Forbes. Yes. Councillor Kelleher,
Yes.
Councillor Laws,
Yes.
Councillor Malcolm,
Yep.
Councillor McCall,
Right, yes.
Councillor Methven,
Yes.
Councillor Noon,
Aye.
Councillor Scott,
Yes.
Councillor Somerville,
Yes.
Councillor Weir,
Yes.
Councillor Wilson,
Yes.
Chair Robertson, motion carries unanimously.
Right.
Then we have the.
Yeah, a
final-
separate motion.
Yep.
Yeah, which. Yes, Kate Wilson moved that one.
Can't remember the debate around this.
Yep, no, there isn't any
They
yet.
Do a break first though for staff stuff.
I'm wondering if we can just get this one done as quickly as we possibly can, because we've got a heap to do yet. Yeah.
Okay, I have absolutely no doubt that I'm going to lose this, but I'm not prepared to leave it. The history of this is that there's been an ongoing issue with the way we rate. For the last term, we tried to get that addressed in several ways, and we've got absolutely nowhere as a council. This is a council motion. It's in your papers later on. My frustration earlier was that we aren't dealing with the actions register, and it's in there, and it hasn't been done. There has been very little done on this, despite several efforts. These people have substantial rates. There's been an acknowledgement at a level that there are areas that should be rated and included in this and would defer or defray some of those costs. But we haven't had any paperwork given to us on it or of taking us forward on this project. And that is a frustration to me as a councillor, that we can't, that the process hasn't worked, that we as governors got to get a better understanding of the situation. Now, if we've got that level of doubt and we've had a motion of council to look into it and nothing has happened, and this has come out of submissions to us from a number of people from different angles, I'm just saying, leave it as it is at the rate it is, because they haven't spent the money from that was budgeted from last year. Leave it, let's resolve this once and for all. This was meant to be an example, an exemplar of us doing a review. What has happened is nothing's happened, and now you're going to try and do a huge long-term plan without any knowledge of how that process works. It's going to be really, really complicated. And I think we've lost the opportunity here to do something cleverly, which we chose as an exemplar. So I'm frustrated that hasn't happened. I'm sure it's complicated, but not doing something doesn't make it any easier going forward. All I'm asking is, we knew there was something had to happen. We didn't do it. We haven't spent the money from last year anywhere. Anyway, the fairest and most efficient way of dealing with this anomaly or the problem would be to say it's a neutral rate, fund it as we often are advised to do by for efficiency reasons anyway, as a general rates in the general rates reserve. And then let's start checking that it is a fair and equitable rating system. These people a lot of these people are paying substantial, and we're talking some tens of thousands of dollars rates. To have an increase of any sort on that without that justification and knowledge, I think is completely unfair.
The second is Kevin Malcolm.
And look, I don't expect people to support this motion because it is possibly on the fly. It stems back to February 2021 when we asked for a rating group to be examined to see what we needed to do for our full rating base ongoing. Also, part of that was to give governors an understanding of the TORI of all flood and drainage schemes, how we rated them, how they worked, and how they were put together, and why certain people paid certain amounts. That one page was promised to us within a month of that first meeting. It was 24 months later, and I see on our actions to be done that it's now going to form part of the long-term plan discussion, which we knew that it was already anyway, but it was giving councillors now, especially with new councillors starting, we thought it was going to be great to have a 1 or 2 pager to illustrate to councillors how these schemes were formulated, how they worked, and how we could develop them ongoing. Very I look exceptionally disappointed by the team that was bringing this to us, and very disappointed in the staffing that, yeah, I won't say the name, but it's just, it's shocking really. And this bunch of the ratepayers involved have been very, very patient, and have got, they just want justification, and they want us to do our job, and we've absolutely let them down. So hopefully that's noted somewhere that I'm exceptionally disappointed. And that's, I'd ask that the chair put the motion.
I just say,
I'll ask that the chair put the motion.
Well, I'm going to speak.
I think I will put the motion because we've got so much on today that going to get done today unless we do. So thank you everyone for the discussion so far in this meeting. Right, so we've got, what is the yeah?
Madam Chair, if you could read the motion, please.
Just about to, thanks.
Directs that targeted rates for the Tyree flood and drainage scheme, which are subject to a review, stay at the 2022-23 rate until the review is undertaken.
Yeah, let's have a division.
Councillor Forbes.
I'm going to abstain on the basis of not enough information to vote. I don't know the impacts of doing so.
Councillor Kelleher.
Or
Councillor Laws.
Yes.
Councillor Malcolm.
Yes.
Councillor McCall.
I'm going to abstain because I don't have the information to make a decision.
Councillor Mifflin.
I'm against because I don't have enough information to make a decision.
Councillor Noon.
Aye.
Councillor Scott.
No.
Councillor Somerville.
No.
Councillor Weir.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
I didn't
Chair
get to
Robertson.
vote, which was-
You don't get to vote. Sorry.
You made it 2 votes actually in this.
Yeah.
Who's counting anyway?
This is a very tough vote.
Sorry, was the motion passed or not? I didn't hear.
It's deciding against because, yeah, we can't talk.
The motion is tied. 5-5. Chair, do you care to use your casting vote?
We'd actually ask the questions we need to.
Yeah, we could call for another vote.
And ask the questions.
Call for another vote, yeah.
Can I, point of order, Madam Chair.
That's with clarification, please.
Point of order, councillor Laws.
I'm just asking the question, is it possible to defer this motion to the next council meeting? And by which time further information can be gained and read and assimilated? It's
Good
only
idea.
February.
I'm trying
It's
to-
only February.
Yep, we could do that. But, yeah, we've got enough time to pull that together.
It's just point of order. If we can't get clarification from standing orders, my interpretation would be that the vote has been had, the vote is tie, and the chair now has the casting vote.
She doesn't have to use.
I don't have to use that.
Yeah. So if she chooses not to use it, Kevin, what I'm thinking is that I'd so move that this item be referred to the council meeting.
It's tied, it just dies. It doesn't.
It just dies.
Yeah, it ends.
It dies, okay. Dies under standing orders. Thanks and sorry about that. I didn't know that it just died under. Thank you.
Bring it up in another time.
That's fine, yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah,
As long as I change it.
we're done on that one then. That paper.
It was closer than I thought.
I do my hearing.
Thank you. Okay, well, perhaps we need a quick break then. It's gonna have to be very quick. We've got a lot to get through. Let's be back
So
by
what was the outcome, Gretchen?
because it applied, it failed, and therefore, yeah, it's dead essentially. There's nothing there. Yeah. Yeah. We've got 10 minutes now. We'll stand adjourned.
So they don't get.
Somebody care to move that we adjourn? Councillor Noon, seconded, Councillor Ware, all in favour? Aye, against carried.
That's what into bush, right?
Live, no.
Mm,
Are we live? Yep. Okay, well, we'll resume the meeting then on the next paper 8.2, which is the RPS freshwater planning instruments, advice to Chief Freshwater Commissioner. And Anita, would you like to just quickly outline what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Everyone should have read the paper though.
I can take the paper as read. I will just add one piece of information that we now have, and that is iwi will be nominating Raru Kirikiri as their nominee. He was on the original freshwater panel. He is on the non-freshwater panel. So if this goes through, that'll be 3 of the 5 commissioners are sitting on the current panel. So just in terms of that continuity, it's just got a little bit stronger again. But happy to answer any questions. It's a reasonably complex process and new. Councillors from the last triennium have seen this twice now. And for the new ones, it's the first time. So.
Okay, questions then at this point, Councillor Wilson?
No, I'm going.
You're moving, sorry, yep. Does anyone have any questions? No. Seconder? Yep. Councillor Forbes? Anyone want to debate? No, okay, we'll put the motion then. All in favour? Aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. 8.3, proposal for participating in a regional sector shared services council controlled organisation. Okay, everyone will have read this paper as well. Nick, is there anything we need to, or Andrea, highlight about this one?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. If you recall, where we'd landed was obviously we need to go out and consult, because if you're going to become a shareholder in a CCO, you have to. So this is just the result of that. As you can see, there was only one submission. So basically, we're coming back saying we recommend, as we had, that that would still proceed with becoming a shareholder, and would get the documents authorised on that basis.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Weir and Wilson for you didn't
No,
end
we
up
didn't
doing it. Did you?
No.
Thank you for putting your names down. Do the job anyway. Councillor Wilson.
Look, just a question. The John, the submitter, did raise an issue which is fair enough to raise, and I think it's good to understand. He's saying that the ratepayer how can the ratepayer make a CCO accountable? And in this process, I mean, we've had section 17 or 16 or whatever, which tried to move in the Local Government Act, trying to get councils to share and information. That I don't think has been a huge success, and this is a different model of doing that work, I think. If answering his problem or John's issue, is there a way of making the CCO accountable? I presume it's just through the statement of intent, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you've got the statement of intent. You've got obviously, once you're a shareholder, you get to participate in shareholder meetings. But all the various projects that are done, where if we choose to sign up to those, you have agreements around all of those. So each one has their own. It's interesting you say about section 17As, because 17As sort of, I think when they first came along, a lot of the thinking was they were going to be great for like TAs that boarded each other to work together and do things. It probably hasn't really worked out that way. But as a regional sector, we probably are effectively, although we might not call them section 17A reviews, we're doing a lot of this sort of collaborative work, which is effectively section 17As through this type of arrangement. The RITS B card is another example. It was already happening. I think we're quite good at doing it from a regional sector point of view. That's not necessarily exactly what section 17A was intended for.
And I suppose again the other accountability which he sort of refers to is the reason we're doing this, and the surety that you're probably giving us is that there will be financial savings by going down this pathway. in general. That's why we do these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this case, what we see here with these projects is there was examples in there, but the big one that's going forward is the our replacement of a cellar with Iris, which goes through this platform.
Thank you. Happy to move in.
Okay, Councillor Malcolm.
Question. So under financial considerations, we say there's no costs. However, if we go into a project, there will be costs. There could be costs and or savings. So the staff that drive that venture, when do we see the cost of having a crack at something come through? So a project comes up, you say, well, that's worthwhile us getting into. It's going to cost us, we're predicting so much staff time or whatever. When do we get to see, have that evaluated, or is that just a straight evaluation of operations?
It depends on what the project is and the scale of it. We have some things that are operating in the background, like I can't remember, it didn't go through RSHL, but when we did, we changed from Hilltop to Aquarius, we had that go through. I can't remember whether we came here for approval, but it was, we were certainly keeping council informed of what was going on. And as we said, we've sort of, we've let you know what's going on with Iris. These things go through. If they're just operational, we'll just, be working away. But it's a matter of, if we've got something that came up that we didn't have considered in the work plan and didn't have any budget before it was outside, then we'll be coming back going, this is all unplanned and we need to get approval for it because it's outside of the budget process.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Oh, Brian, sorry, Councillor Scott.
Cool, thank you. I'm generally supportive of this. All I ask for is a bit more transparency and updates, particularly maybe on a project by project basis. So many of these projects potentially could be very significant. Any comment, Nick, in terms of, that communication? Is that through the Finance Committee? And what are your thoughts? I mean, how often do we get, historically, have we had updates of any joint project, whether they're IT projects or whatever? What do you propose in the future?
Like I said, I think from memory, you had updates on Aquarius came through. Iris will be coming through regulatory, but on this, once we're a shareholder, it's actually a very good mechanism because there'll be standard, an annual shareholder update and everything. We can just flow that straight through, and as you said, into the Finance Committee, because it's the Finance Committee that oversees CCO, the CCOs that we've got. So that would be a pretty natural mechanism for it to go through and be reviewed there.
Cool. Well, I would encourage that. Thank you.
Councillor Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a query around, it talks about, if you're not, this organisation's not a project within the new structure, does the member organisations required to pay some sort of admin annual fee to cover costs that are spread across all the shareholders? Is there some sort of subscription arrangement?
No, not directly. You've got each project, works out and funds itself, and whoever's in that is indemnifying RSHL against any costs, extra costs that might relate to that. The RSHL is also the mechanism that across the regional sector is, if you like, it's the one collecting money off all of the regional councils and coordinating and funding the regional sector work that goes on. So we all share it, and if you like, that is the administrative part of the regional sector. So that flows through. We just pay a standard percentage share for that.
Okay, so that exhausted the questions then. Kate, were you moving? Yes. Yep, and Councillor Noon seconding. Not wanting to speak to that, I assume, Councillor Wilson?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll put that then. All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. and Mariana joining us for ratifying the triennial agreement. Andrea. So you've all got the triennial agreement here in front of you, which has been essentially simplified and lays out basically relationships and how we'll work together along with some other matters as well. Mariana or Andrea, is there anything you wanted to touch on with this?
No, nothing further, but happy to answer any questions.
Yep. Questions? No question. Oh, Councillor Wilson.
Will this
And Scott.
triennial agreement make a huge difference to the way that we are going forward or have in the past acted together? In your, as in driving climate change or any of those other big questions?
Difficult question to answer. The agreement in and of itself requires us to implement it in the way that it is set out. I can't really predict the future.
Yeah.
Can I just make a comment?
You sure can, yeah.
Our climate change specialist, Francesco, he reports to the Mirror Forum, so he's picking up on your climate change point, Kate, that formally happens, and he's working with other climate change experts within the TAs throughout the region. So that's happening.
I'll represent the way.
Yes. And yeah, and the Otago Chief Executives Forum, which feeds in as well. Here it's described as a key enabler, which is true. And while it has been discussed as a topic amongst chief executives recently, I understand, and there's more discussions going on, and our council as well potentially could play some sort of role in helping to understand where we're at in Otago and climate change, and where we could potentially go. So there's some discussion started there, I understand. But yeah, I think it's a good starting point to have this type of agreement. It's a legislative requirement, of course, as well. And yeah, I think it does help to shape the way that we interact. Councillor Noon.
Just a query with regards to the last triennium, the big focus was on three waters and waste initiatives in terms of looking for synergies across the region and how the TAs and the regions work together to achieve that on time outcomes. I suppose that is the next step, that to actually nail down some topics of focus during this next triennium for the Mirror Forum. I got that.
Do you want to respond as a member, Richard? Would you like me to?
Yeah, no, I think you're where we've got to on priorities or what we're doing. Yeah, if you want to comment on that.
We haven't formalised, the forum hasn't formalised priorities for this triennium. The focus on reforms won't go away, and there's a large proportion of those that require a regional response. Or there's a large component of those reforms that is regional. So that especially applies to the resource management reform processes and the Three Waters processes. So they won't go away. I think waste and climate change are topics that we can choose to progress regionally. We're not forced to by any sort of external forces, but we can choose to do that. And one of the things that differs in this agreement when compared to the previous agreement is that it brings staff working groups into the agreement structure and requires those staff working groups to have terms of reference that the chief executives oversee, and then that connects those staff working groups via the Chief Executive Forum to the Mayoral Forum. So if we do wish to implement the agreement in the way it's set out for things that are not mandated externally, there's a clearer pathway to do that. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
that moved a wee bit away from priorities, but that's where it's at, yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry, councillor Scott, you were waiting before, but I see your hand's gone down.
Yeah, and Drew asked my question. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else then? Or ask for a mover and seconder? Right. Well, I'd be happy to move the two recommendations there. Somebody like to second that? Councillor Weir, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, okay. Councillor Wilson wanted to speak to it. I
I'm sorry.
didn't see your hand.
I'm sorry. This is an opportunity that only comes every 3 years to do a trading agreement, and I expressed around this table 3 years ago my frustration that we're not being more ambitious on some topics. This isn't a criticism of staff or anything. The process that gets us to this at the beginning of the training is that we get something lumped on our agenda without us having any strategic oversight of it, without us having conversations with other than through the mayors and the CEOs of what a change could look like. We've had a really good presentation today by Pierre for the third time, and yet we've got really nothing that we're driving some of these things with an absolute statement or commitment on. And whether it be transport or whether it be climate change or whether it be something that's foisted on us as an activity to be committed to go. I mean, I don't think the waters is necessarily the most important thing for us as a councils in this region to be dealing with, but it's foisted on us. We're not having a chance to drive some of the change I think we need to be doing. And so my frustration is the process that gets us to something that we're signing off without us having an input to it. And it's not taking it away from staff or councillors. I asked last time, and I'm going to put it on as an action now, that subsequent to this, that we have a full opportunity to feed into the next triennial agreement at the end of this triennium. And that's about driving and get us all together with all the our other councils when they've got that experience on the table, because we can be driving something much more meaningful, I believe, through a much more focused and targeted agreement. And again, I'm having to put that up in Toulouse, but I'm at least going to try.
I thought you just said it was going to be an informal action rather than a motion, did you?
I said a motion. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't hear that.
I thought I'd said a motion, sorry.
Oh. Rightio, so I've already moved.
Yeah, I've got a mover and seconder and actually voted on the first one, so we can do subsequent motions.
Yeah, a subsequent motions.
We
And we
haven't
go
done
back
the
to
other
the
started voting.
Oh, yeah, but sorry.
exactly.
I said.
I thought
I
you
did
were
ask-
debating that, but yep, sorry, okay. So yeah, we've already got halfway through voting for the recommendations that are there. So all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Subsequent motion.
Council meet before the end of the triennium and discuss ambitions with other councils of a new format for the triennial agreement. But that, it's very loose, and how that works is very loose, but let's.
So, sorry, the first bit was that councils, mate.
Yeah. So we can only do our council,
Mm.
that we try and meet with other councils to look at a new format for the triennial agreement.
Anyway, I thought that what might have emerged there was that we were going to internally, as our council, come up with what our thoughts might be for what could be key themes for an upcoming agreement to consider. Was the bit that I took from what you said, rather than get all the councils getting together, because that's what they do as the mayoral forum. Yeah.
No, the councils don't vote. That's the problem.
Oh,
the problem is, and you guys have a really set agenda by them, but we don't ever reflect. I don't care if we get together and reflect on what a triennial agreement could be doing. and advise the forthcoming one. I thought that was going to happen last year. Yeah. I don't know how, I'm sorry, I'm being clumsy and I'm tired.
No, yeah, no.
But this is the only
Should
time.
we
get to
be
deal with it.
reviewing
Yeah.
the triennial agreement from our perspective as a council to so that
I think that's possibly all we could.
Okay, to
do
inform the
rather
new,
than-
yeah.
to inform the
Yeah.
new council and to make sure.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. That this council will review at the end of this triennium, the triennial agreement to inform the new council.
I'll second that.
Radio councillor Scott has his.
Yeah, there's other things to talk about, but I'll just make the comment. I don't know if it's so much the agreement. It's actually about getting some projects and getting a commitment and actually delivering on them. That's where I believe the challenge is. Thank you.
So, yeah, I think that's part of that. That's certainly what councillor Wilson spoke about. So I think that's probably what is meant.
Yeah, but the point is we can actually get involved in that now, the prioritisation, work with you, our chair, and say, well, these are the projects and we want some outcomes.
Thanks. We've got a motion about to go up, I think. Got a seconder for this motion. Oh, sorry, that's right. It was Councillor Forbes. Yep. Just have a look at that. I'll read it out, Councillor Scott, once it's up, so you know exactly what it says.
I don't think I have this quite the way you want it, but do it on the fly here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we've got requests council to review the agreement before the end of the triennium to inform the new council.
That makes sense. Do you know what? we have to do?
To review the triennial agreement.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you can put that in there.
Radio, Mariana, you're, but we understand, yep.
Does that make sense, Marianne?
It's more than the triennial agreement, because it's about the priorities, isn't it? That's what I'm hearing.
I think it would be the triennial agreement as it's currently set out doesn't include any priorities. So if you want the discussion to address issues and projects, then I don't think the recommendation does that. If you want to talk about the mechanisms, so especially the sort of things I was talking about earlier, the fact that we now require those staff working groups to have terms of reference, that they're far more mundane sort of things in the agreement itself than projects and topics. It sets out the agreement focuses on who forms the regional groups at what level, so that we're connecting staff with governance at a regional level.
So would it be helpful there to talk about, to review the triennial agreement to inform priorities for the new council?
Andrea.
Reviewing the effectiveness.
And Amanda, there's a problem with this one, and
Yes, there is.
that we can't direct what a triennial agreement looks like, but priorities for our council. And recommend to an incoming council to put through the triennial process. Anyone else got anything else to say before we try and adjust this one?
Also, this is policy on the fly yet again.
Yes, it is.
And it's like thinking aloud. And because the problem here is is completely two separate different things. What we're talking here is a overarching a document that's going to govern the triennial event. This is talking about actual stuff to discuss in the forum. So I think it's completely different. So I think we need to actually get this one sorted and then move on for another day.
Amanda.
Everything goes well, but
I was just going to add, as Councillor Scott pointed out before, if it's about the issues that you'd like to take to the mayoral forum as the Otago Regional Council, I don't think that wait to the end of the training. A workshop could be held where you come up with some regional priorities that you want to take to that meeting, and with some recommendations or suggestions of how to move forward on it. So that could happen anytime.
Chairman's report.
Councillor Wilson, after all that useful advice, did you want to adjust those words at all, or is that what you?
I think that there are huge benefit, and people who've been around this table for 3 years advising the subsequent council, especially if it's a huge clean out of the council, about what we want in there. I also think that the LGA is not limited by what could be in a triennial agreement, and they have been poorly lacked ambition for what could be in there as councils to actually make some of the change that we need to happen. And so that's why I think there's a huge opportunity for us to be for us to inform the next council.
Right, so you're happy with those words?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And we've got councillor Mepham and councillor Laws who'd like to speak to her.
Okay, just I agree with your intent that it's good, but I feel these meetings sometimes when these things come up, we don't actually have a full understanding of everything behind what you're suggesting. Can I just ask perhaps if you were prepared to put a paper together for our council meeting so that we can treat it like we do other recommendations?
It would be wrong for me to put a paper to council.
Well, how else can we do it? I mean,
I could do it.
Andrea,
we do need to read.
Really
we need to
important
understand
because we've got some speakers. Yep, councillor Laws and then councillor Malcolm.
I suppose I shouldn't speak at all because what I'm about to say is, listen, these training agreements are a waste of time. They always have been. You're just simply ticking a box for the Local Government Act, and they mean nothing. And this one just sits into the meaningless category as well. For example, if you're going to advocate on an issue, and you just did recently, I think on the hospital issue, you don't need this agreement, Gretchen. You can just go and do it and sit down with your mayors, and your mayoral forum's the appropriate thing. If you look into collaboration, for example, we've made no progress at all since, how long these been going now? I think they're required under the Local Government Act 2002. So under collaboration, there is shared services and facilities.
You moved the training agreement, so if you want to speak to the other motion, that's fine. But
no, but what I'm trying to say, I am talking to the triennial agreement, so it is part of the triennial agreement, right? Yeah.
We've already
that's
moved it and moved on.
So what I'm saying is we've made no
another
progress.
motion.
We've made no progress on shared services and facilities. Listen, just let's tick the box and move on. And if we want to sit down and talk to our regional partners about issues, that's a separate item for a separate day.
Councillor Malcolm.
You're just really interesting from and agreeing with Councillor Mepham's comments that, you know, we really would like to understand this. But I mean, here's my second look at a triennial agreement, and I still really don't know. Still haven't had any input into shaping it, doing anything with it, and really finding out about it. So, I mean, I just tick the boxes. I think probably I'm going along Councillor Laws' way that if we're not allowed to be involved, then why would we get involved in? I think it should be that should be exactly done. There should be an effectiveness review of the triennial agreement, and we should look at it at the end of the triennium to say, well, that's a really good thing that's happening, and that's how we should move on. Because otherwise, every triennium we're just sitting here,
just ticking a box,
ticking a box, because that's until you actually do something and sit down and say, actually, let's review it, let's have a look at it. Are we getting any mileage out of it? What went really well? What didn't go so well? How do you ever, you're just ticking a box, really. Wasting ratepayers' money.
Yep. Okay, any other speakers to this one? A subsequent motion then? No. Okay, we'll put that then. Do you want me to read it out again, Councillor Scott? Probably. It now says requests council to review the triennial agreement to inform priorities before the end of the triennium to inform the new council. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mariana and Andrea. Right, next one is 8.5. Is that right? Yep. Governance and community engagement on Dunedin City Council's future development strategy.
And I think we might have Dr. Johnson online as well. Liz, potentially? No? She is. She was. I'll just.
Mine's got a question.
Yeah.
should just be coming in.
There she is.
Okay, great.
So
Robin Dr. Johnson from DCC.
So just, this is the paper that summarises the workshop that we had 2 weeks ago now, I think, where we discussed governance arrangements for the FDS with the DCC. So we had some governance arrangements in the last training, but with the condition to come back and reassess them and confirm them for this 3 years. So this picks up on the preferred option that was presented at that workshop, and sits with it some, if you go with the preferred option, some delegations that will need to be provided to the appropriate committee to enable that function to exercise. So happy to take questions. We've got questions of Anna, she's here as well. Otherwise, we'll just take the paper as read.
So that the motion there is strong enough today to just get on and do the delegations if required, so that the
I think we
existing
may-
committee can make decisions on the restricted matter of the future development strategy and not other decisions.
Yeah,
That's Friday.
I think the delegations may need to come back. I think the
Okay.
committee structure may need to come back as a separate paper, but I haven't actually touched base with Amanda to check that.
Yeah, sorry, I think that's an important matter, but I kind of understood that we could do that today if we wanted. Amanda, did you understand that question?
Yes, because council, if the paper came back, it would be the same. It would be, council needs to make a decision about what delegation it's given to its committee. So whether it's through this paper or whether it's through a separate paper, it seems more efficient to do it through this paper.
Yeah, so the existing, my question is the existing one would need to be added to make it clear what the, or is it, sorry, is it enough as it is?
Perhaps we'd just take out the will.
Yeah, makes it
So council
provides.
provides
Yep.
delegation to that committee to enable.
Council
Say will.
provides delegation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it says to that committee to enable the committee to consider and make decisions concerning the FDS work with the DCC. So yeah, it should be fairly clear that it's just restricted in delegation. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Scott.
Cool. I don't have a question, but I'm happy to move the motion where the decision-making body for our council is at the Regional Leadership Committee, and that we work constructively with the DCC to have a working party, but not to give that working party the ultimate decision-making. That comes back to the regional leadership. That's my thoughts. I'm happy to move that motion, and that may be one of the options from memory.
Is that right? No, Anita, I might just get you to clarify that point.
Yeah, so through the chair, the intent is that the Regional Leadership Committee will act as a committee of the whole, like the Strategy and Policy Committee did last year. So there won't be a working group of that committee, and we'll operate exactly as we did last time, and that everyone will be included in the workshops and papers will come back to the committee who will have the ability to make decisions on that. So there isn't a subgroup of the committee that sits on the FDS. It is a committee of the whole.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Councillor Weir.
I just ask, I think it would be good to have the regional leadership committee have the delegation to make decisions on that matter as a committee of the whole, or whether that should be brought back to council and then.
So the preferred recommendation is that much as it operated last year it was under a different committee, but that committee had delegation. The DCC's committee is a committee of the whole and has delegation. So we're proposing, if you go with the model of the committees of the whole, that they have that delegation.
So we'd be giving readers.
You'd be giving them, yeah, that's right.
Would that
just need to adjust the words.
That would just happen here and then that would
Yeah,
be
so we just
updated in
confirm
the
that
committee structure.
in order, if you decide that preferred option, that you support the preferred option, then we would just amend recommendation 2, and it would say resolves that
That's what I've got.
should the prefer, yeah, it would say something like council provides delegation to that committee.
Yeah, Liz has already adjusted those
Yeah,
words
cool.
for us to work with there.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So
Happy to move.
Adam.
I think Brian's moved.
Brian
You'll be
moved,
seconding
you're
Andrew.
seconding Andrew. Lloyd, I think
Well,
your
just a
hand is up.
quick question, do we need to have it to have it instead of naming the regional leadership committee to have the appropriate committee, because committees like we may have a completely different committee structure in 12 months' time. Who knows? So whether because we assign it to a committee and then in 12 months' time, that committee may be split up into four different
Right,
ways.
yeah. That's okay. We're
It's
in
the same.
questions again, but it's a valid point, Amanda.
Yeah, I think you would need to name the committee that's got the delegation.
Have you
So
got
currently the
current-
FES
currently-
is under the terms of reference of the Regional Leadership Committee. So if you were doing a review in 12 months and that terms of reference changed and FDS issues went to a different committee, that delegation would then transfer to that committee, provided you agreed there.
Yeah.
But for
might
this
need
committee,
to agree.
I'll take
Yeah.
it's currently the leadership.
Yeah. And that's probably fair enough because,
It's to be appropriate.
yeah. Oh, I don't know if we need to have the appropriate
Okay.
one because, yeah, that could be quite open-ended as well. We can do a simple tweak to be able to accommodate it if that situation happens and would make council decision. So, cool. Right, so we got the mover and the second. Anyone else want to speak to it, particularly the mover? No.
So
Councillor
I am
Turnbull.
just a little confused still, I'm afraid, because recommendation 1 there is we resolve to confirm the preferred governance arrangement. Now, I'm not quite clear which one that is of the two options. That is option 1, as it doesn't say that there, it says it's the ECCs, but that's our staff recommendation 2.
Yes, so recommendation 1 will need to change for your preferred option to go in. So you'll need to resolve to confirm option
Not
1 is your
necessarily
preferred option.
because it's not preferred. Yeah, it's our choice.
So if we can just be clear which of those governance arrangements we are agreeing to. Could that be clarified?
Confirm option something.
Option 1.
Is option 1 as stated there. Right,
Yes.
thank you.
Resolves option. Yeah.
It's not it's preferred, is it? It's chosen or however you word that.
Confirm option 1 as the staff report. Yeah. Take the it's out.
Okay. The rest makes sense. Okay, mover and a second and no one else wants to speak. No, okay. Put them all together then, all in favour. Aye. Against. Carried. Thank you.
I'll move the next one.
Thanks, Anita.
I want to.
Yeah.
Absolute happiness.
8.6 is confirming QLDC's nomination to the Regional Transport Committee.
Move
Quentin
Kate,
Smith.
seconded Alexa. There we go.
Move Kate, seconded Alexa.
I do want to give a wee bit of background. I don't know if many people know Quentin is the deputy mayor, I think.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, deputy mayor.
Of Queenstown Lakes. But, and coming from a person who's got a disability, he brings a really brilliant insight into the transport sector. And, you know, I don't want to pick on him, but his contribution over the last 6 or I think that's definitely 6 years he's been on it has been absolutely brilliant. So I'm really relieved to see that his promotion to deputy mayor hasn't compromised his ability to participate. Because
it was a bit of a fight, I understand.
Yeah, his contribution is great, so I'm delighted to see him there, and I think it warrants a special mention.
Thanks, Kate, and I'd agree with all of that. And normally it's the infrastructure chair who isn't Quentin. The infrastructure chair is now somebody else, Gavin. And so it's quite a different arrangement, but I'm very, very pleased that they've sorted this out.
Okay, got our movers and seconders. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. On to the document signed under council seal. Moved Kate, seconded councillor Noon. Any questions? No. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now, review of open actions from the last triennium. Amanda is the author on that one, but they're generally actions that we've requested, so yeah. Perhaps people hopefully have read these. Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, on page 84, council meeting chairperson's report, undertake a review of the Manihira governance decision making process. It says it's completed.
Yeah, it's worth discussing, but councillor Nones.
Yeah, so it was never completed simply because I know it says completed there.
Yeah.
But the trigger was the tag report.
Yeah.
Be delivered, and then the review of the process is going to occur after that, and that was the initiative that I was going to obviously write, but that never happened. So whether the word complete is there simply because we didn't actually receive the tag report, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's a previous triennium. We are moving forward in work program. Yeah, I guess it's something to discuss, but perhaps, yeah, my feeling is discussing. It's also, I don't think it was a formal resolution of the council who do the review. It might have been. Yeah.
Fundamentally, for the theme around the table now, it was about reflecting on the establishment of the I can't remember the name, the Manihira Kia reference group that was established. It's running for quite a period of time. See, all the stakeholders were around the table. We were initially, and so it was a reflection on that process, whether that would be repeated in other parts of the region, for example. And we probably landed now that that's really not the way we're heading in the future. So it's an action that probably doesn't,
where it is.
probably now doesn't really, is possibly not relevant now.
The page 34.
84.
Oh, sorry, 84 of this. Yeah,
That says
depends
page
on
3
the
of the document,
document.
yeah.
Yeah, undertake a review of the Manihira Kia governance decision-making process is whether on, well, given that it was a previous triennium and our governance decision-making process is quite a broad thing. And I can't see the need to do that in the current setting that we've got. And I think your words have kind of echoed that we've moved on from there. However, Councillor Malcolm's raised it.
Well, we've moved on, but we haven't resolved anything, and we haven't actually reviewed what happened and why it happened and what it affected and what we should or shouldn't use in the future. So because it's gone into a new triennium doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be reviewing something. And it's only gone into a new triennium because there still hasn't been a decision made. So I would have thought.
It just doesn't say tag, and it's quite very broad.
No, well, actually, the comment there's a delay. It's delayed until tag complete science work. Still waiting for tag to complete the science work.
Yes, Dr. Warren's going to
Oh,
say.
look, I think we discussed this at ELT, didn't we, Amanda, and you haven't had a chance to say anything, but look, we've got to keep these things here because they haven't been closed out. And we have to report back to you, but there are some of these items which, in my view, we should just choose not to do. And this might be one of them.
Maybe completed's the wrong word.
So why did we have completed for that
Closed,
one?
perhaps. No, rather than completed, could you use closed or?
I think the system that
Yeah.
sets the register only allows it completed, so to take it off the open action list, it has to say completed.
I see.
But the commentary there was to say, but it's not necessarily the right word, but it's the only word we've got.
Yeah.
Close something out.
So not just this item, but there are a bunch of items there which I think council should consider whether they want us to continue to action on them at any point in time, because some of these are so dated.
Yeah,
But,
perhaps we come back to this item because we have pretty short of time.
Yeah.
I'll
today.
do today at on table.
Lay it on tables for you.
Thank you. Yeah,
To-
just.
Can I ask that, should this come back again, that there are some items taken off, please?
Yes, thanks, Kate, and apologies for that.
Thank you. Staff will know what it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, did you capture the
Yes,
mover and
thank
seconder?
you.
Okay, all in favour of laying on the table until a later date? Say aye. Aye. Against? Carried, thank you. Oh, right. Yeah, we've just got recommendations of committees of council. Recommendations of Environmental Implementation Committee moved Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor.
Moved.
Okay, sure.
Seconded, I mean.
All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now we're on to the chairperson and chief executive's reports. So yeah, my report is there, and I apologise, it's in a bullet pointed form, but yeah, just there's been a massive amount of work going on, even though we've had a bit of a summer break in the middle of that. There's been ongoing work. It's been really good, constructive work. And a lot of important decisions made by this council, embedding new governance structures and co-chairs, and I've been amazingly impressed with our co-chairs and stepping up to those roles straight away and getting stuck in. Well done, and to ELT and staff for supporting us as we find our feet in those new committees. Yeah, made our biggest decision that we can make, appointing a chief executive officer and working in the transition between the interim and the new CE Richard Saunders in June. So yeah, just commenting there about how valuable that transition process is and setting us up for success in the future, and thanking both Kim and Richard for their work in that space. And yeah, we're meeting weekly, which is really fantastic. Yeah, we've got hearings underway for the regional policy statement, which started on the 23rd of January. So pressing on in our planning space, trying to get some not national, regional directives there in terms of policy. So yeah, that's I understand working really well as well. And yeah, we have thanked the Port Otago retiring chair Paul Ray for 11 years of fantastic service to the port, and recognise the amazing stewardship that him as the chair and the broader board have shown governing Port of Otago, a massive job. So welcoming also Tim Gibson into the incoming chair role. So we did write to Paul and thanked him for the work that he has done. And a lot of meetings there, which you will have read about. I'm just going to take that as read, and if there's any questions, you're welcome to ask them. Councillor Noon.
just in reference to the meeting you had with Mark Schellenberg.
Oh, yeah.
It just, at the end, you said his ideas for future focus. So I just wondered whether you could just briefly share with us what his ideas were. Focus.
Yes, Mark's probably the leading limnologist in the Deep South at least, and a lot of experience in lakes around our area. So yeah, he's got a lot of vision in this area, but particularly I think in this respects, he has put together some research proposals and 4 strands, which could be standalone or together as a large research package, I suppose, bringing in international research as well and attracting people to Otago to study the deep inland lakes. So that, and off the top of my head, a whole range of matters, but some of them ecological, some of them climate change. So yeah, he's just sharing the fact that he's done a lot of thinking about research that could be happening in that space. Also just talking about some visions that he had for establishing a research centre inland around that as well. What else? Yeah, mainly just those topics.
No, I just wondered the synergies with the lake strategy and whether there was any opportunity to tap into his knowledge, search work or whatever. But yeah, it's enough detail in the meantime. Thanks.
He's a key person to bring in and inform us in that, and that's certainly what we'd like to be doing. So don't know if we've told Mark that yet, but it makes total sense and it's obvious anyway. Yep, thank you. Anyone else got any questions? Yep, Councillor Weir.
I was just reading the letter that was sent.
Oh, yeah.
To a leader for chairs of the regional councils, and I was just sort of looking at some of the areas of common interest listed, and I was wondering about roading quality and the impacts of proposed reduction in speed limits. What our interest is there?
I think this is a package of ideas that all of the councils put forward. So this was one that West Coast was particularly interested in. And I think, yeah, it's probably not one that's our highest priority, that's fair, but it's a recognition of the willingness of the councils of the South to discuss each other's issues, understand we're not always going to be in the same, always agreeing, but at least understanding what's top of mind for other councils and working together where it does make sense is what this is about. Thanks. Councillor Wilson.
Just as like answer to that, I can assure you that all of the councils across the South Island are also working on the roading issues at the regional land transport level. We've got a meeting on the 30th of March as well. What I wanted to use this opportunity foreshadowed earlier in the start of the meeting was how you collectively the other councils that have been ravaged by weather recently, and our reach out to those councils and whether we should be reaching out even more, and understanding what we can learn from them as well in the long term. Certainly not the priority, but should we or could we or have we been offering anything at your level as chairs, and then after the CEO talk about, I know that at an operational level we have. I hope we've been sending some out of through you, through them, and that you feel sure that you've got our support to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, and yeah, we'll talk about operationally what sort of support that we've been lending. Also regional sector group last week, and that was a good chance to connect actually, if not in person, with some of the affected chairs, but also on Zoom for nearly all of them except for Hawke's Bay, So that was good, and to be able to offer help. But I think you're right, there's a bit of a coordination that's going to need to occur over the next long time probably, and a lot of I've had phone calls from groups such as Lions and others that just want a bit of guidance as to how they can feed in, and I don't think that level of coordination's quite there yet in terms of community and how we can some have taken initiatives themselves, and whether that's our role, but let's see what we can do. Yes, we have offered support to other regional councils where we can. And operationally, Pim, do you want to comment on what civil defence and emergency management are doing?
Yes, so I was just opening my all staff email on Friday, and I acknowledged in that message, I think 7 or 8 of our staff who've been quite heavily involved, particularly Michelle Mifflin, actually in coordinating the Southern Regional Council responses and support to the North Island. We've got a number of people who are either on standby or working up there now, mostly in the engineering team or in the civil defence area. Gretchen has mentioned, I think, Matt Alley already in terms of his supporting the far north. But look, we see this both as an opportunity to support our colleagues and obviously feel for them. At the same time as an opportunity for professional development for our own staff, and because at some point we're probably going to have the same thing happening here, and both in terms of the ability to see how these things can be managed better on the ground and how we can learn from these disasters, but also how we might respond if we're faced with something similar in the future. So look, there's always a benefit in terms of professional development, but first and foremostly, we're there to support where we can with the people that we've got that can be helpful at this point.
So yeah, we've got 3 staff at the moment deployed, but they're looking to, I think, call upon, because I'm the chair of Civil Defence and Emergency Management Joint Committee. I got to have a meeting with the minister recently, but it sounds like we're going to have another group of 50 targeted skilled people called upon, and it's most likely that our civil defence team will be called upon for further resourcing, which won't be my call, but imagine that would be supporting.
I think it's really important that we note that, and let's show our appreciation to the staff who have to leave what's their business as usual and their families for the disruption, but how important having that shared services thing that we signed off earlier, that councils actually get better acquainted with each other's strengths and weaknesses and being able to share those people. But thank you for the update.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, we move to note the report. Do that, Councillor McCall, seconded Councillor Forbes, all in favour. Aye, against, carried. On to the Chief Executive's report.
Thanks, Gretchen. Look, I'm really happy just to take my report as read, actually, and answer any questions if there are any.
Happy to move. Thanks for your work, Pam.
Yep. Right. Thank you, Brian. Seconded Councillor Noon. Okay. Don't think there's any questions. Everyone has read the report. Thank you very much, Dr. Byron. Right. Noting the report. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks. Comes to resolution to, do we close the meeting now and then?
No, you resolve to.
Okay, that's right, and then close. Resolution to exclude the public, that the council excludes the public from the following part of the proceedings of the meeting for the matters that are named there, and for the exclusion table reasons that are there as well. Somebody moves that. Councillor No.
We don't have really, there's another extension.
She mentioned it at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes, I've done that one. Thank you. Moved Councillor Noon and seconded Councillor Wilson. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. which brings us to the closure of the public meeting. Thanks,